And I always thought of myself as somebody
September
who
is-
loves the summer the most. And I do love the summer.
I love the summer, but yeah.
But man, the fall, when you get to like dress in a little bit warmer clothes.
I just love the clothes. Yeah, I love my entire wardrobe is jackets and sweatshirts. I'm everything else. I'm like, it's all right.
All right, guys. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready back here.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start our episode the way that we always do, which is we'll just do a deep breath together, and then we'll get going from there. So I'll count it down. 1, 2, 3. So welcome back, both of you, to the Unscripted room. Today, our theme is the noise between us, and today is also the first time that we're going to jump into themes for honesty. Mm-hmm. And I think our job is to explore what is the noise between us. Why is there noise between us? What can we do about the noise between us, and just have a really fun conversation trying to figure out, how did this get here, and do we want it? Does it advantage us in some way? I mean, I think there are so many avenues and questions that we can go through, and I think we've, again, put together a really diverse and great group to be able to kind of look at it from all of our perspectives. If you both feel ready, we can jump right in with the first question, and I promise you, today's question is we're heading right into the story.
It's a doozy.
Yeah,
All
there's no waiting
right.
in this episode. We're going for it.
All right.
I'm excited. All right. Where does the noise between us come from?
You weren't lying. We do get right into it.
Where does the noise between us come from?
I mean, it's hard to even pick one place, I think.
Yeah.
We could pick multiple places, like where if you just had to, what's the first thing that comes to mind for all of us when we think, what is the noise between us? Where does it come from? Like, what's the thing that jumps into your mind immediately?
For me, it comes from our conversation that we had on the last podcast, Reading the Room. And I don't know exactly how we talked about it, but I was talking to my grandma about, she was watching it, huge fan. Of course.
Thanks, Grandma. And she's number 12.
Yes, exactly.
Shout out to number
We're
12.
building an audience, one grandmother at a time.
Perfect.
That's amazing.
Shout out to Mammy. But she said she really liked the part where, I think you might have said it, being yourself should be like the easiest thing in the world to do. But we've made it something that is so hard for one reason or another. And I think part of the noise comes from that, whether it's us seeing success in a one-size-fits-all answer, or feeling like, I can't express what is going on within me, I need to figure something else out. It muddies the water, or creates too much congestion on one path when everybody has their own path, and then that just creates so much dissonance in whatever we got going on.
Yeah, it's in you saying that, I was like, my initial gut reaction was like, well, it's social media and it's digital, everything. And I think it is to some extent. But I think connecting to that, it's almost that now that we have so much ability to see each other, it creates this fear of inadequacy, or, what we all now call imposter syndrome, all these, we have access to everyone's fake, non-honest, perfect selves, and we can see everything globally.
Yeah.
That whereas we couldn't even 20 years ago. That I think that maybe there's noise sort of being created by access, which is somewhat depressing if you think about it.
Yeah, it's you get to see more of the world theoretically.
Yeah.
But the version of the world that you're seeing could be extremely curated to be something that is very difficult to imagine that you could achieve yourself.
Yeah.
I definitely, I've gone through different stages of how much media I use in general.
Yeah.
And I would say the first big tier for me was not watching the news anymore.
Yep.
And then after that, I never really had social media. I had a Facebook account, but I had not used it in a long time. And then I just never got involved in any other one. So it's because I understood that maybe that would be an easier thing than trying to break the addiction once you got it started.
I imagine it probably would be.
It
It has.
it
You're
looks
like,
like it has.
so far, so good.
But the one of the things that I did get addicted to for a while there was YouTube Shorts.
Oh yeah.
Because it was very accessible.
It's a
It was
quick
so
fix.
easy,
Yep.
and they were so good at my algorithm. They knew that if I would start at NBA videos to begin with, and then by the time I was done, it was like Andrew Tate and like crazy bullshit that was going through there. But it was all like
Wow.
sucked you
Yeah.
into this sphere of what they wanted you to be thinking about. And then I tried to bring that down where I was only watching those while I was doing a sauna. So it was like, okay, I'm going to suffer while I'm doing this to
Yeah.
figure out whether I can. And then eventually I broke it all together and I stopped watching all of those shorts. So I don't see anything that's short form anymore.
Okay.
And what I found is the couple times that I've gone back and done it, it makes me depressed really, really fast because instantly I start feeling shitty about myself. Like
Really?
really insecure, really, really quickly. There's a lot of different things that that can change about your life. That doesn't mean that like just because I felt that way while I was watching these videos, it's 100%. But it was like because I had gone through this subtle withdrawal. When I picked it back up again, it was like wild. I had the same experience. I tried to do online dating for a little bit as I'm trying to figure that part of my life out too.
Yeah.
And it was like the second that I went on to one of those apps, it was Hinge. And I've told you this before, but I was like signed up on Friday, quit on Sunday.
You're like, no thanks. Yeah.
Because it was that much overwhelming
Yeah.
of like the noise was so loud. And it was more like this constant desire that I had to know who was trying to talk to me and who was I talking to and how does this work and what do you... And it just took all of my attention away from my kids and from the things that I really care about. And my values seemed to like go down on my list, and my addiction to like instant went way up on my list. And it just sort of shocked me how fast that can happen.
I'm surprised because everyone, not everyone, but the mass majority of people that I talk with, friends, colleagues, family members, have that exact same feeling, particularly about like YouTube shorts, short form video content of any kind. And I, for whatever reason, and I work in video, so you would think something to whatever extent, but I have never been a video person. Like I don't overly enjoy like learning through YouTube video. Like I am the person that likes to figure it out myself, or likes to like have the written directions so I can kind of like try it, like have it in front of me. Like I don't like, it has always felt disruptive to me to like, it's like making sound out loud. Other people can hear what I'm like, for whatever reason, the voices in my head have always been like, oh, video is disruptive. It's like, so I've just never valued it in that way. And so I've never had this like need to like, so I have a TikTok account. I create YouTube shorts, create TikTok, I consume them.
Yeah.
But I've gotten to this place now where, particularly with TikTok, maybe it's a little bit different with YouTube. I'm sort of less on YouTube shorts, but TikTok, my algorithm is like this pure, happy, like the noise is like so cheerful and wonderful. And I feel like I use that time. It's like literally the only thing I do on TikTok. The only thing is I log in maybe once every week, every 2 weeks. And it's just my best friend who sends me like upwards of like 200. Like she's just like, during the week, she's just like seeing something, thinking of me, firing it off. And they just like all store up in my inbox. And then I go in and I just like, I'll spend 30 minutes or whatever else, just like going through like this curated list of videos.
Does she want more friends?
And I just feel awesome at the end. Like,
well, how could you know? Because it's also your friend who's curating it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it's like, but it's such a weird thing because like your reaction is like the sort of standard reaction. And even I took my kids to go see this screening of a documentary called Screenagers that was all about
you mentioned that.
How how digital media and noise and everything is affecting our kids. And that was like one of the top things was like this just endless scroll of video. And I felt the same way during that. I was just like, oh, this is like, it's one of those things that like I feel like I should be doing less of, but then it also doesn't feel unhealthy in the way that I'm currently consuming it. So it's a weird, and I feel this way about this topic in general. It's so hard for me because there's so much, I have experienced personally and professionally so many benefits from the noise, but it's so distracting. Like it's horrible at the same time. It's so like,
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that we have to be really careful when we have this conversation that we're not like, let's hang on to horses while the cars are out on the street.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, hey, it's happening. The
yeah,
technology
yeah.
is
You're not going
happening.
to turn the tide. In
It's
the, yeah.
right. It's like there's beautiful things that are coming out of it, but we also do have to really take a look at what is it doing to us. Before we came on today, we started a conversation that I felt like I don't know if we got a chance to finish out there, but it's that we're doing this social experiment with ourselves right now that to our knowledge, no one in human history has ever done. No one has ever had all of knowledge in your pocket anytime you
Yeah.
want it. No one
Yeah.
has ever experienced that. There may have been, I mean, there's super interesting stuff that's happening right now where we might find that there were other cultures who had advanced technology that were beyond us that got wiped out at some point, and
Yeah.
we'll learn all kinds of cool and interesting things. I'm super curious.
My algorithm knows that's interesting to me, so I
Yeah, right. I'm curious too. I love the idea of thinking about it. It doesn't mean that it's real. It doesn't mean that it's not real. But what is real is that we are experimenting with ourselves right now, and we're doing it in a way that was different than at least the way that we grew up. But
Yeah.
you said something earlier that I would love to go back to because I think it'd be very fascinating. Is you made a comment where you basically kind of said that you didn't gravitate towards things that were videos or made noise because your voices in your head were saying like be restrained in what other people experience.
It's so funny because we were chatting before we jumped on about like the difference between Canadians and
right, that
Americans.
is
So
kind of
maybe this is a Canadian thing, and it started with voice memos. So there's this, and it started at work because I'm a ridiculously fast typer. Like I started my career in writing and copywriting. I initially wanted to be I wanted to be the person who is a copy editor, like in a room surrounded by books, just like with a red pen. Like that was my goal. That was my goal in life.
You want to throw a number out there just so people know exactly what they're messing with if they ever have to have a type off with you? Like how
I don't know. I don't know, but I did get like everyone who sees me type is just like, holy cow.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Okay, good.
So, it's my one skill set.
it's a bar. It's like your one go-to thing at a bar. You're like, listen, bring out some
Cherry
keyboards.
stems, not at all, but I can tell.
Bring out some keyboards and I'll show you what's what.
Yeah. It's my millennial typing class that I took back in the day. But yeah, no, so I've always been really fast at typing. I've always loved like blogging, emailing, and I love reading books. So like I've always kind of written word, but I've noticed like over the last, however long, I hate being on the phone. I love texting. I love all that kind of stuff. But then there was this shift over where it was like, now texting is like audio notes. And so it's like, which is like the worst of every world for me because I'm in a cafe, I'm in the car, and there is like a neuroses or something in my brain
Yeah, I have
that is
too.
like, what if I'm like in the car with my kids and I hit like play on this audio note and like, I don't know, someone says something like horrific or like, I don't know, whatever that would
Probably
like
be a great
super,
learning moment for you.
it would super offend my kids or like my boss or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, like it's a friend sending me an audio note. And I'm just like, I don't know. And I never have, it's so disruptive because I'm always like, where are my headphones? How do I just feel like I work and live in so many shared spaces right now. Like I'm working from home, but like the kids are coming in and out, or like my husband's also working from home. So that I'm never like alone in a room. So I don't know. It feels like if I'm playing there's always like the person who's just playing like something out loud, and you're like, okay, but I'm like also sitting.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and wherever it comes from, it seems like it's probably a nurture thing that we learn
Yeah.
culturally, whether it's in our homes.
It
or
feels
whether it's-
non-polite to me.
That's how I feel
yeah.
about it too. But the thing that you were saying that was really drawing me in on another level too was that there was noise before technology.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same kind of noise, right? So like if you grew up in a neighborhood, you knew that there were certain moms and dads that didn't like each other as
Yeah.
much, and there was
Yeah.
there was definitely noise between things that were going on, and sometimes I don't even remember it being super clear, like it being political or it being this or that. It was just sort of like you
Yeah.
understood that there was friction
Yeah.
in certain areas that you had to navigate. But now it seems like everybody is isolating themselves. And so you don't even know whether people get along anymore because it just feels like they're doing it to themselves without actually having relationships that go bad. There's just not very many relationships or not the same kind, I guess. I don't know.
It's that concept of like behind closed doors and not like, it is interesting.
Like everything's not out in the open as
Because
much
now
as
it's
it
with
used to be.
strangers as well. Like
Yeah,
it's in
like
the
it's
comment
not.
section.
Yes.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
open as
Yeah.
it used to be from like a local community
Yeah.
sense. But then it's so much more open
Yep.
to
Yeah.
like to strangers, random people. Now you can like dive into someone's business. Someone can dive into yours. There's random beef online that you're now learning about that doesn't really have anything to do with any of us here.
Well, and you don't even know if it's a real person.
yeah,
Yeah.
It could just be
Yeah.
a bot somewhere in the world that they're like, I think we can make this nanoscent if we make this person angry with this person. Like, let's fire this up and see what we can do. Like, this might get us it's not. It doesn't appear to be real. It
Yeah.
appears to be a complete. Maybe it is the manifestation of when people stopped thinking that the truth was the primary purpose of all things and started to think that like it was okay for us to manipulate each other a little bit. Like this has come up a couple other times in conversations, but I think back to how pervasive it was when I was a kid that people were like, no, white lies you got to use them.
Yeah.
You got to use them.
Yeah.
protect
White
someone
lies
you
are
care about or something.
Yeah, that was-
I've heard that.
It was
a lot.
like nobody taught me how to tell the truth, but people were definitely telling me how to use white lies.
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Because I don't know as an adult that I actually believe that
That's
white lies
wrapped in-
are effective. I think that I actually believe that they're ineffective completely.
That's wrapped up in it. So right before you said that was in my mind of like, there was this notion within like a real person community, like prior to these digital spaces that we're in, that like there was a level of politeness. Like what goes in the back of my mind is like, you know, parents and neighbors and friends always being like, well, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, which is like tied into that kind of idea of white lies. Like it was better to tell a white lie than to hurt someone's feelings or to say something inappropriate or to like, I feel like that's on the same playing field. That like a white lie is defendable if it's not making someone else feel less than.
right, which I wonder where that started.
Which we've
because-
thrown that right out the window. Now we're like,
that-
let's just offend them. Like,
Well, kind of and kind of not. You know what I mean? Like in person, people are more cautious than they've ever been about
That's
not
true.
saying
Yeah.
something that makes them. But then if you go online, which I have to say, one thing that I want to acknowledge, I've never made a comment on anything online in my entire life.
really?
Never. Not once.
Wow.
I've never read something and commented underneath it. And I've never looked at the comments of anything that I've ever produced, which I've never posted a lot. But if we
It
had
can be both like very, very fun and very like freeing and also the most horrifying possible.
just another thing that I just
Spectrum.
decided, okay, I'm just going to avoid this if I can. So I have no context to that life, but from what I understand of people that do go into the comments and they do look at the comments, that sometimes they can be uplifting, but for the most part, especially when I listen to people's podcasts that have become really popular,
Yeah.
it seems pretty obvious that what you shouldn't do is look at your comments. Like that's going to drag you
is.
down and get you into something that is, you don't even know if it's real. You don't, all that you can do is just show up and try to do the best work that you can and see if it resonates with people. But the idea of trying to figure out how to like play the comments is just, it's like playing white lies. It's like trying to figure out how you're navigating something that you can't 100% be sure is even authentic.
It is. I have such mixed feelings about it because so I live stream a ton, on a typical week, 3 times a week, 3 different shows that I do. And as an example, so I do a podcast with my best friend where we review movies from the 80s and 90s and today, and we do that show live. So we are expecting and hoping that people will show up in the comments and they contribute to the conversation. And there's certainly a vulnerability there because anyone could show up and say horrific things.
Right. That
And
almost seems like safer though, because somebody has to be there.
someone has to be
They're
there.
kind of accountable to what
Yep.
they're saying in real time too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
They can't just post it and then just get off and be like, oh, I'm never
They
going
can,
to respond.
but they,
they could
can and
actually
they do.
leave it.
Like
Do
I've
they?
seen,
I mean-
and thankfully not on shows that I've been on for the most part. But I have definitely had people comment on how I look or how I sound, or how, like there are people that just like are there to rip you down and or are bots or whatever
Does
else.
it
But
get you when they do it?
it
Because I think
it-
it would get me to some degree.
It does. It absolutely does. But I will say on the flip side of it, I have benefited over the last, I guess it's been now 7 years that I've been doing live streaming, both professionally and personally. The relationships that I have made from people in the comments, like, so there's a fan of my show, who now is like a friend, like I chat with all the time. He lives in Canada, so like by just sheer luck, he found our show. He's also Canadian. We're the two of us are Canadian, so it's kind of like this joke. And he's like a little bit younger than us, and he's got a disability, so he's a little bit isolated. He's not able to like get out and kind of do as much.
Yeah.
And so for him, like the show really matters, like which is exactly like the point of the show is
Right.
to bring people together, talk about things that we love, and I like so it is sort of this push and pull of like I wouldn't have that relationship and those connections if I hadn't been in the comments.
Yeah.
But man, you can find some really horrible things in the comments.
Yeah.
But you can find some real, like you can build community by putting yourself out there and being, and being vulnerable in some way or another. And it is hard to figure out like where those boundaries are, because I've also had instances where I've like invited, I'm like too nice and I've invited people like onto the show and it's been like a little weird. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully, okay. But like moments of being like, oh, this might have been dangerous. Like, so there's, it is tricky. Like, I feel like I am a better, I'm certainly a better content creator and better at my job as a result of it. But I also like, there are a lot of relationships that I've made with like people from the internet, quote unquote, that like are like have been life-changing relationships. So it's like without that, I don't know.
Well, so much of the internet is clearly a reflection of our own mind. You know what I mean? Because if you look at what the internet is, it is just like these series of synapses that fire off that like are connected to some larger sort of information bubble, but none of the information is held in one central place. It's all held in these little pockets of memories. And, the internet just goes out and is like, bing, okay, I know that. Bing, I got that one. And like, bing, I got that one. And it goes all over the place. And that's exactly how our brain works. Our brain works exactly the same way. For me personally, I could, if I had to examine myself really carefully and I thought about like, okay, if we're not even talking about technology, we're just talking about noise. In my head, the noise is all insecurity, right? The noise is all like me thinking about things that I don't like about myself or that I feel not enough about or that I didn't do this enough or that this is, it's all that.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that the internet ended up being a giant version of
Reflection
what
of
our
that.
own individual brain is, which is that you really have to work hard to navigate how to put yourself in environments where you're minimizing your own personal noise. So if you have something that makes you feel particularly insecure, if you bump up against it every once in a while, you're going to keep feeling insecure. But if you like acknowledge like, oh, okay, I see that I'm insecure about this. Now I need to go and practice building security. Like there's a likelihood that when the next time that feeling comes up, you're like, no problem.
Yeah.
There's that
But the-
productive discomfort.
Yeah.
The internet doesn't have anything that's asking it to create that, right? Because if every individual is essentially allowing the internet to be a reflection of their insecurities, then the internet has no barrier for that. It doesn't have any way of being able to be like, no, why would we do this to ourselves? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's
In a
so
way,
much
it almost feeds off of that instead. Like, because then there's the engagement again, and you just keep filling yourself back into it. And
Well, this has come up a bunch of times, and I'm loving doing a full season and series of this because you can see what conversations are like attached to a podcast that we did over here and then reemerge over here.
Yeah.
And But one of the things that, one of the things that has been true in every episode is that we get good at anything that we practice.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So if every day you're going onto the internet and you're practicing doing something that could be forcing feelings of insecurity to be more raw and apparent all the time, that could be a good thing if you're learning how to like use that as training to
To overcome. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think if we're honest, like that doesn't exist anywhere that I'm aware of on, certainly not in the social media platforms. They're not putting it out there.
It in any way.
No. And I also 100% believe that people should be able to be mean to each other if they want to be. Right? Like, I think that it would be the worst mistake that we could make as humanity to try to tell people how to treat each other.
Yeah.
It would, but I also think that we would be way better off if we could just figure out that we're better off if we treat each other well.
Yeah, I think part of figuring
Am
that
I
out
Canadian
is the
now?
being
Yeah.
nice to each other.
I think I just graduated. I think someone play the anthem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been looking for a dual citizenship, and now I didn't know it was just like one sentence, and I'm in. Perfect.
That's funny. I think like what you're saying with the being mean to each other, you do need to have that to an extent to then see how, some people might just have that feeling like, oh, it feels so much better to just be nice to someone else. But other people need to kind of explore that other option and be like, oh, I don't like the way this feels in my body. I don't like the way I made another person feel. If we just say, you have to do this, there's going to be a little bit of that curiosity of like, what if I was just a little different and went on someone's comments, said something really mean and went away from it.
Yeah.
And it's a sad deal, but yeah, I don't know how we navigate that, especially on social media.
When I think about that question, the noise, I think that the noise feels like it's coming from the highs and the lows.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know what I mean? So you're not like, there's not a lot of balance to the way that you experience the noise these days. It's either like all this or all this.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you're somebody who is like, wait a second, I need a lot more information. I need every problem is complex and needs a complex critical thinking to be able to examine why it is what it is and what it would need to be able to become something else. And so just like telling me these crazy highs and lows doesn't give me any reference point for what the solution could be in between. I'm not 100% sure that's not intentional.
Yeah.
It just feels way too crazy on one side and crazy on another side, and trying to figure out like how do you filter all that noise into something that feels like is livable and practical and compassionate.
Yeah.
Something that's interesting that's coming to mind for me is that one thing like that the part of the conversation about noise is that noise exists, but that there's also a lot of signal, and then that there's signal not just in the real world, but a lot of signal on the internet. And I think something that's interesting is that something on the internet that can be noise for one person can also be signal for another person, depending on what information is actually relevant to your life. But that the algorithms that we have that circulate all of these different forms of media don't have a metric for determining, did this clip benefit you? The only feedback that it gets really is time spent, clicks, likes, maybe money that you spend as a result of seeing certain pieces of media. And it would be really interesting, like if there were a feedback loop that it was able to, a system was able to actually determine whether something was genuinely doing you a service, and then optimizing based on that, then people would be able to get all of the things which to them are signal, which doesn't mean that the things that are pushed away are inherently bad. Those might be good for someone else. Just an interesting sort of thought.
I think we might have bumped up against something earlier that's worth going back to, which is because it starts here and then it applies to everything else that we're talking about as you go into the internet and the opportunity for noise to exist, which is it ever okay to lie? Can you make a case that lying is actually a productive and healthy thing for us to do with one another?
Mm.
Or is lying just the beginning of a ripple effect of a corrupted soul that you have to work so hard to be able to bring yourself back from, and even the small ones begin a small ripple effect and make it harder and harder. And the internet is just the easiest place to lie on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's like almost no one holding anyone accountable for whether the truth exists, which is also why, at least I'm only going to speak as a father. I'm really struggling, especially as a single dad trying to figure this out on my own, really struggling to figure out how I can make sure that I'm pointing them towards the truth.
Yeah.
Because it's not just my truth. They have to figure out their own truth.
Right.
And they have to go through their own life
And
experience.
how can they vet it? Like, yeah.
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 I'm like a I'm like a toddler on how to use the internet in comparison to them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I'm trying to like parent people who are significantly better at navigating something that I don't understand. And all I know is that what they're navigating.
A lot of it is pretty fake in a way. Or
Yeah. Right. So,
Yeah.
but if we could go back, I think it'd be really
the
interesting
lying.
between us. Like, is there a version of lying that is okay?
It kind of reminds me of the conversations that we've had before about fear and respect, and then both of them being a strategy, one of them having more of like a long-term effect and one having a short-term. The only argument that I think I could probably make for fear is like, if you really need the short-term, it comes back to the white lies piece, like, oh, you know, saving face or saving someone's feelings, like a dangerous situation, you know, to help other people. If the only way to really like make sure that in the short term you get a weapon out of someone's hands or something like that, if you need to lie, like,
Yeah, if
Sure, I
you're
would argue
dealing
that, you
with
know?
someone who is irredeemable with malicious intent, I think there are scenarios where you're not worried that the lie is going to ultimately hurt them or cause something bad to ripple back, because the only thing that's coming from this person already is like the intent to kill people or something of that nature. I think I think there's very little benefit ever from lying to people who are well-intentioned or just like normal people who have bad patterns, but that when you're dealing with people who are just actually their intentions are bad and that's not an accident, then there are things where I think it does make sense.
Well, so that's a really extreme case, and always hard to have a conversation when we go to
the
the
other
crazy
pole.
highs and lows, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm 44 years old, and I've never had somebody who threatened to kill me.
Yeah.
So in my lifetime, the chances of having somebody that is so malicious that I need to lie to them for them not to kill me, it could happen. It's like possibilities out there, but the likelihood is really low. I'll give you an example of something that I've dealt with as a parent, and you can tell me, if you've ever bumped up
Sure.
against this one. But okay, so spoiler alert for anybody who watches this podcast: if you have young children that are watching this, you might want to have them turn it off. But
We're going.
when my kids were really young, I indulged them in the Santa Claus.
Yeah. Same.
And regret it deeply.
Do you really?
Oh, deeply. I deeply regret it, and I've talked to them about it extensively, and they actually disagree with me. They think that that I was right to tell them that Santa Claus was real.
Huh.
Okay,
And-
we got to talk about this because I've had this conversation with my partner and we've really tried to unpack it.
Yeah,
so.
I deeply regret it because
Huh.
it was the not that I've if I go back through my history of my experience with my kids, not like I couldn't point out times that I told them one thing and I knew something else to be true, but I haven't done that in a very, very long time. I was a young father when my kids were born, and there was things that I had to learn how to navigate out of. But the Santa Claus part was a very known.
Did you, so my question to you actually is, I've had a bunch of conversations about Santa Claus, so I'm very fascinated actually with this topic. Did you grow up in a household where Santa Claus held a high level of value? Like, do you remember the mythology of Santa Claus? Do you remember when you found out that he existed or didn't exist? You remember all of that?
Yeah.
So
But I would just say that it was the mythology was there,
yeah.
but the enthusiasm was not there from my mom.
Okay.
Like she also, I like later on, I also learned this to be true, but I think she begrudgingly went along with it because she didn't want to deny us the fantasy.
Yeah.
But she felt like there was something wrong, and maybe I felt that from her on some level.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. But my brother told me when I was pretty young, so I didn't have a ton of time
Okay.
before I found out. And he's 3 years older than me. So
Okay.
there's, yeah.
See, so I grew up in a household where I don't remember one way or the other. Like I remember like I have photos of sitting like on Santa's lap. We certainly had lots of presents, but I don't believe that my parents, to my memory, ever like there were no presents that were like from Santa under the tree. There was no like it was like part of the season, but it wasn't like a specific thing in our house. And when my kids were really little, like I'm a huge Christmas person, so like I went all over the top with everything.
Seen your house in Christmas time. It's beautiful.
we still have the elf on the shelf that like my kids are 11 and 14.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't even know if they believe in Santa or not, but the elf moves every night and it is their favorite thing at like finding the elf, like when the elf appear, like this is like the favorite thing ever. And I just keep doing it because like we've never had any kind of conversation about it. So and whereas my brother is more religious than I am, and so my nieces are 6 and 4, and he told them from like literally like they were I think like 2. He was like, there is no Santa Claus, there's no whatever, and
I would have expected that to be opposite for somebody who is more deeply religious. That
no, it was like this is not what the season is about. This is like so for him, it's like it's just not like this is pretend. We don't want to lie to you. Like this is not part of our belief system. Like he's just, which I actually found surprising because again, that's like not really how we grew up.
Yeah,
it's sort of but so I don't know. I feel like my kids have never been like I don't know. I have no idea what they think or don't think. It didn't. And maybe this is maybe part of your like white lies. It never really felt like a lie. Like I know it is, but it never felt malicious.
Most people were a part of it as well, so it was like.
Well, and I also didn't want I think part of me in like watching and granted my nieces are younger, so like obviously I saw this well after I'd already made the decision for my own kids, but I think like watching like my niece go through it, like so she was little and never sort of was part of that experience, but like my brother and his wife have had like teachers talking to that, like because she's ruining the magic for all the other kids. And so like it almost felt like I would deprive them of this community experience where like all the kids are talking about this thing in the community, in their community. Like it's like, what did Santa get you? I've always kind of been aware of the fact that like I didn't want my kids to feel like part of an out group or an in group. Yeah. So I never doubted that decision. I don't regret the decision I made, but I was amazed at how I just don't have any like fond memories or non-fond memories about it. It didn't really bug me one way or the other. I didn't think about it too much when I made that decision. But mine just like I don't know what they think or don't think. I don't like.
Yeah, I think it's worth just saying from my perspective, I definitely do not know if I'm right about the way that I feel about this, but
You're not alone.
The more I've been like kind of just trying to go deeper and deeper into, what is the purpose of my relationship with my kids? What is it that I'm actually trying to get out of it? I don't know that telling them any lies ever serves the purpose of me being able to build a relationship with them where it is undeniable to them that I will tell them the truth.
Yeah, that is valid.
You know what I'm saying?
Surprise birthday party.
Okay, surprise. So one thing that I would love to talk about, because I also want to acknowledge, like, one of the things that is so beautiful about the holidays and Christmas and Santa Claus and all of that is that it's tradition.
It's tradition,
and that your children begin to realize that like a smell is going to be associated with the feeling of what they get when they thinking about this and that. And I feel very strongly that tradition, because I grew up in a household that we had a really strong bond of love. Everybody was, my parents were very kind to us, not a ton of tradition. And I feel like that is it's a hallmark of how you build a family, is that you have these, rituals that you do all the time. The question is, does a white lie need to slip into those rituals for them to still feel as magical as they could? Or is there a way that you could create a ritual that feels even, equally rich and amazing, but you don't have to put yourself in a position,
It's cool to hear from both of you guys because, we were having this conversation.
It's not easy.
It's not. It's really not. And
No.
like both sides, in my household growing up, we left reindeer food out and
Yeah.
there were a couple bites taken out of a cookie,
Yeah.
half drank milk, a note from Santa and stuff like that. And then there were, gifts. Some would say Santa on it.
Yeah.
And some would say mom and dad.
Yeah.
Knowing, I don't know when exactly I found out that it was all mom and dad, but I think part of the
Right now?
argument, it's a little world shattering.
Sorry, Trevor. I did say tune out. I don't know what to say about it. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go back home and cry.
What?
Tell my parents
Your
thank you
sisters
for all
are
those
like,
things.
Trevor's realizing he's gonna have to get those extra gifts.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna
All
go
those
down
big
to
ones?
11 listeners when your grandmother hears we spoiled this. This is terrible.
I feel like I might have been with my grandma and my dad. Like the only thing I think about is being in like a hot seat talking about Santa. And I think it was going through school and like, what are people at school talking about? And that is
Yeah.
something that we've talked about. Like, how do you have a kid going in those other places or like
tough.
being with family and you hear family members be like, oh, like, what did Santa get for you this year? Or like,
Yeah.
other kids playing around and they're like, oh, well, Santa doesn't do that. Mommy and daddy get it,
Right.
and like,
but that
it's
could also
so
be
hard.
a kid who's Jewish.
Yeah.
That's
true.
I
You
grew
know,
up in a
or-
really Jewish neighborhood and
Or
city, and-
Muslim,
yeah.
or like, if you
Yep.
were a part of a cultural experience that
Yeah.
didn't follow that tradition.
Mm,
So the idea of making it so that like Santa Claus is a lie that we all have to participate in, otherwise
To
we're
feel bad.
we're somehow like stealing children of some precious experience that they need to have. It just doesn't ring true to me all the way to the core, because I believe that there's no more value for kids who celebrate Christmas than kids who don't.
Yeah.
mhm.
One of the thoughts that I was having as we were talking about that is that like, um, having an animal sometimes can be an excellent way to
Mm.
learn how to deal with death,
Yeah.
Mm.
because the life cycle of an animal is like in a perfect world, the life
Mhm.
cycle of an animal is far less than the life cycle of
Yep.
its owners.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think if I had young children, I wouldn't be like, we're getting a dog so you can learn how something dies. That doesn't seem like a good way to go.
Yeah. Right.
But you could.
My dad was all about that with hamsters. He was like, hamsters teach you about death because they die every year. They're
Your
just
dad's like, see this ant? This is going to be the best pet you've ever had. But I do think, so you don't have to talk about the fact that an animal is going to die to be able to know that that's going to happen, so that you can have a conversation with your kids after it happens of being like, we need to fully embrace how we grieve this animal that we loved.
Mm.
But we also need to embrace the idea that we're learning skills right now of how we recognize the feelings that come
Yeah.
up when we grieve, so that if we have to grieve something else in the future, it's not that we grieve it any less. It's not that we don't grieve it as powerfully, but it's that we understand what these feelings are so that we can navigate
yeah,
that
how to
grief
process them. Yeah.
in a way that keeps our eyes wide open, that we don't become the victim of our grief, that we accept that if we love something, the cost of it is that you're going to have to grieve that thing if it passes before you do.
Mm.
Maybe there's a version of doing Santa Claus where you can allow
Yeah.
the
Like disillusionment, like
and then
process the kind
but
of.
then once they figure it out, it might be appropriate to sit down and say, hey, listen, like I gave you this fantasy, but you have to understand that if you go out into the world with that kind of with the naive idea that every fantasy somebody tells you is going to be something that you think is real,
Yeah.
that's not actually how the world works. In
Yeah.
fact, there are a lot of fantasies that people are going to push in front of you for the rest of your life, that if you think they're all Santa Claus, you're about to have a very rough road in what you're
Valid.
going to,
Yeah.
what you're going to see and experience. So I don't know that it's like in all of the conversations that we've been having in the Unscripted room, I think one of the things that's emerging is it's like, there isn't a right or wrong way to do anything. but we do have to come back to some central value system of like, what's the purpose of doing anything?
Yeah.
Why are we doing anything? At least for me, I can't escape the idea that the purpose of doing anything all the time is to try to get to the truth. Stay as close to the truth as you can. But it really, I don't know, like gets inside me when I start thinking about how often I was told it was okay to lie when I was a kid and how often that gets perpetuated. And then if you go out and you look in the world, it's like everywhere right now. And I wonder if that's not a lot of the noise. It's just this idea that like lying has somehow become something that we tolerate when I can't find a single reason why it's tolerable.
Do you think it, so I was thinking as we were talking, like, do you think it starts out that way? Like, I think about like the idea of like an influencer, for example, right? It's like you decide that you want to be more present online, or you want to build a business or a brand online, right? You're putting your best foot forward. So like you're intentionally curating, right? Which may start off as, it's not lying. You're just trying to like make you're trying to project yourself in a certain way or make your life look a certain way or whatever.
Which I'd have to say might be lying.
Might
if
be
you're
lying,
not actually that person.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe you're trying to be that, but like I feel like a lot of what is now definitely lying or false representation or what have you online, a lot of the noise and the things that we're feeling is this like what's true and what's not true in all, in these spaces, whether it's in person or online. I mean, some portion of it has to come initially from this idea of like how we are projecting ourselves. Like we want people to think the best of us, to think that we've got it together. Like no one wants to show up like a hot mess or like, like I think back to this. I used to work in publishing way back in the day, and I was working for a publisher that made cookbooks. And so I was running their like blog and their social media accounts, et cetera. And so I had access on those, on those pages to like incredible photography. I was working with like top-notch chefs and whatever. So like the content that I was curating, both even for like my own channels as well as for those channels, was highly curated because I had access to all these different people. It wasn't necessarily lying or not lying. I just was doing my job.
Right. But showing something, and like if you're not, does that make it a lie because it's not the complete thing?
Well, what was weird about it was like years later, like after I was no longer working at this job, I was chatting with a few friends who I didn't speak to a ton over the years, but were like seeing what I was doing online.
Yeah.
And they all thought that this was like my photography or that I was this incredible chef or that I was like an amazing food photographer, just because again, they're like scrolling quickly and seeing things and they didn't have the full context of like why I was sharing, or maybe they weren't reading, the details of it or didn't understand fully. And I had this like feeling, and even the name of my current TikTok account is like a pushback to that of like, oh, I'm not being my like honest self online, like, because there are many moments where I'm a mess and I'm like, but then if you only are showing all of the messy side and disastrous side of your life as well, like there's an inauthenticity to that. Like I struggle with like, how do you project yourself online in a way that isn't causing harm to other people or being disingenuous, but also like, you're not the person that anytime someone asks you how you are, you're like miserable. Everything is like, it's like, where is the line, I guess, between like being real and being authentic and being like, and I don't know, and being professional or trying to be your best self. I feel like there's a lot of white lie in that.
Well, what I was thinking as you were saying that is like, okay, so all of that is so interesting because I think that you just gave a really beautiful description of how that all works, like what's actually happening there. But to me, the central question is still like, shouldn't we be representing how we actually feel about ourselves at all times? Right. And because if you took the example of somebody who was curating a version of themselves as they started doing a podcast or started doing, their influencing campaigns or whatever it was, they were trying to like show this confident version of themselves. What we should have to put that up against is would they build the same size audience if they got on and just said, hey, listen, I'm so passionate about this thing. I'm not an expert in it yet, but I'm going to make videos every day and I'm going to get better at it. And the more you watch me, I swear to you, I will put in the time to be great at this. If you can just forgive me for not being great at it right
Yeah.
now. Would that person build an audience faster by being who they are in the moment than they would if they were like, I got this.
I know all this, and then they get exposed for not maybe knowing
What
that.
I don't know, like, right?
They would probably
I
build
don't know.
more like they would build an audience that trusts them more.
Yeah.
They would build a
Like,
community.
yes.
So the difference between an audience and a community, they would build a community, but the other person might have higher, like what we call vanity metrics and higher
Right.
the other person might get to like 1 million subscribers
Right.
faster by doing the, like, again, an 80s and 90s term of faking it until you make it, right?
Right.
This idea of just like push down your feelings and just like present your best self and just
That is something that is
believe it. Like,
another one of those quotes that we've just like accepted it conditionally
Yeah.
Fake it
as
till
a
you make
society.
it.
Fake it till
Yeah.
you make it. And there was
Right.
one other, the do as I say, not as I do. Is
Oh,
what we've
yeah.
talked about. That's like
Yep.
the same kind of feeling of just
Fake it till you make it, though, is one that we should slow down and examine because it may be way more dangerous than we
Yeah.
want to give it credit. Because
Yeah.
so in all of the examples that we're using, right?
Mhm.
Let's say that there is an influencer starting their career and chooses to create a persona that they're using to be able to be clickbait.
yeah.
I'm using terms now that are a little bit out of my vernacular as far as my understanding
you
of how they
got it.
work. Yeah, so correct me if I start
Nailing
being
it.
pretty good.
super old dude.
throw a
saying-
rage
is
bait in
so
there, and this is a
cringe.
viral moment.
right. But so if they're they're out there trying to figure out how they're reading the algorithms of what people want, and they're trying to create a persona that nails it so that they can get their clickbait, their whatever they're doing, however they're doing it. We've gone through this. We've had discussions where, because you've done a lot of the social media, figuring out what are we going to post, what are we not going to post, what does all this look like? We've had these conversations,
Yeah.
but we have to examine it, and we should as honestly as we can. Once you've built your audience that way, are you then trapped in your persona?
Mm.
And does that help you in the long run? Or now are you living an endless version of something that you didn't even mean to create because you didn't have the courage to be able to tell people the truth from the beginning?
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
you were always going to be talented enough to get an audience because clearly you have an audience. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten there in the first place,
Yeah.
right? You were good at something, which is why people wanted to watch you. So if you could have just admitted that you were not so good at it in the beginning, you still would have theoretically could have built the same audience. But once you have that audience, then you get to be yourself.
Right. I imagine that
It's a trap.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then you feel trapped. And the perspective might be like, okay, everybody in this digital space knows me as this. You get to 1 million followers or something like that. If you're walking out in public, chances are you might get recognized or something like that. And now you're like, now I need to be this persona even when I don't have my phone out and I'm going live or making a video.
Mhm.
Right.
And it just you split yourself in a way.
Right.
Or like
And
kind of
those,
fragment.
from what I can understand, like if we thought the definition of fame is that essentially more people know who you are than you know who they are.
Mm.
That's all it is.
Right. If we simplify it like that, then nobody knows who you are.
Mm.
Right? Isn't that
Yeah.
kind of tragic that even like that lots of people understand they know what you look like,
Yeah.
they know what you say, but nobody knows you. So by the time you get to that point of some level of fame where more people know you than you know them, and they know you through a persona,
Mm.
that, like you can see how that would have a really damaging ripple effect on where it goes. And I don't think we're setting a great example for young people right now of that is avoidable. Because almost everything that we do, including the way that we put the kids through school, is about asking them to create a persona, fake it till you make it, and everything that you do until you figure out how to get to the other side. But so much of that is like, you don't know how to ask for help in the right ways. You don't know how to be honest about like, well, these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. Is it okay to have weaknesses?
Yeah.
I don't know. As
You
an
know,
adult, I think it is.
Yeah.
Just something that's coming to mind for me as a source of lies that feels unnecessary is that maybe culturally we're not actually as comfortable as we should be with our own privacy. Like we should be able to, like a lot of the time, if you're lying about something, it's like, oh, your friends or your parents are asking, what were you doing today? And you were, you went and saw a girl or something, and you're like, oh yeah, I was with my friend Zach. Instead of being like, you know what, I actually would prefer to keep that information to myself. And a lot of the times it doesn't feel okay to say that, which is really interesting. And it sometimes, like, it even me, like if someone were to say that to me, I think I would understand, but it also is kind of weird. Like
It
feels
piques your
kind of
curiosity.
strange. Yeah.
Why?
But that should be okay,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
like we should be okay being like, actually, there's certain things about my life that I don't always want to disclose,
Yeah.
and things that I do that I don't always want to talk about. But it feels like something that we're not super comfortable with.
I've thought about this a lot lately, and I think we even talked about it on one of our mic checks, Oliver, because like we're planning on doing a lot of these podcasts, and it's vulnerable every time I
Yeah.
do it, and exposes a lot of it potentially could expose a lot of my life and a lot of experiences that I've had over a period of time. And the conclusion that I've come to is that I want to answer any question that somebody asks me with 100% honesty. But if you're not asking me questions if you're not asking me the question, I
Yeah.
probably don't owe you the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does raise the question of what do we owe each other, and what level of like visibility and vulnerability do we have to? But like, yeah,
It's come up for
interesting.
me a couple times with, especially with my older son, who's
Yeah.
now going into his sophomore year in college, just as a reference point for the maturity of the conversations that we're trying to have. But there was a couple times where we would be talking about somebody that was like neither of us knew them personally, but we both knew of this person.
Yeah.
And we had completely different thoughts about the person that we were talking about because we had different context in the way that we had come to understand that person in general. But it brought a lot of temporary friction into my relationship with him, where he was like kind of attacking me for having an opinion about somebody. And I was like, listen, I'm like willing to back off of my opinion right away because I don't actually know this person, but neither do you. And don't you think that we should reserve opinions for people that we actually know?
Yeah.
And don't you think that we should make sure that we don't allow people to have opinions of us that change the way we feel about ourselves unless those people love us? Like, what good is an opinion if that person doesn't love you?
Yeah.
That's very true.
That's the internet.
That is the internet.
Just a lot of people who don't love you who have opinions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And feel safe to voice their opinions. Like there is, which we haven't talked about yet, but like there is this concept, to circle back to like the comment section, or even
I
there's
want to ask you something about that.
Yeah, there's this like idea of, because we're not face to face and because I can't see how you are actually reacting to that, I can say whatever I want under whatever guise. And like, what is mean? Like we were talking earlier about like, I could leave a horrible comment on this podcast and think that I'm giving you feedback, or that I'm like, honestly could feel that way.
Yeah.
And it could like make one of us want to cry. Like that it's so mean, so it is, I think that we've created a space where there is not, there's enough of a barrier between people that you can't immediately see how your words and your feelings affect someone else.
Well, it seems like there's two sides to that, right? So, and this would be really fun for us to examine, because on one side, it's like we all need to learn how to say the truth, but there is a version of saying the truth with compassion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then on the other end, we also need to evaluate whether it's in our best interest to never have our feelings hurt.
Yep.
Because I definitely feel like getting your feelings hurt is part of how you understand your blind spots, and then you expose those blind spots so that you can actually grow. This has come up on almost every podcast we've done, but the continuing question is, can you grow without discomfort? I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that, but there has been kind of a universal answer to that so far. But
I don't think so. I think you have to be uncomfortable to grow.
I think I've landed there as well.
which means that we almost kind of have to reshape our gratitude for discomfort. Like we have to be okay building relationships with people where you're like I genuinely feel like I have
I think you are right though in that like I think maybe what makes it hard is you don't have a relationship at all with the people in a comment section.
Yes.
And so then it's discomfort without feeling like there is always value there. Like if you were to come to me, even in a comment,
Yeah.
and you were to be like, I don't know why you said that thing, or I don't know, you called me out for something, and I could see, I'd be like, oh, I can see the perspective in it because I know you, and I trust that you're saying that to help me grow, or to because you care for me,
Yeah.
etc. Whereas if it is like, if you don't even know if it's AI or a person, and you definitely don't know who the person is, and they say almost the exact same comment,
Right.
there's a
It's
lack
very
of
different.
there's a lack of humanity there, and a lack of like you don't know the intention behind the person, and I think it's harder for people, even if it is good to sit with that discomfort. It's harder to learn from that and actually take that because it feels overtly mean.
It's almost like the next generation of humans has to become, from very early age, has to become extremely good at understanding the difference between analog and digital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, what's my analog life going to be? Which is
That's a really good
which is
point.
that like you and I have been friends for long enough
Yeah.
that if either of us ran into something that was uncomfortable, I think we've built the equity to sit down with each
Yeah.
other and be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm a little uncomfortable about this. We disagree on this a little bit. Like, where's the convergence of where our perspectives are slightly different?
Yeah.
Maybe we can get something out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a digital world and you don't have that relationship, it's like the same thing we all go through where it's like, if you want to have a difficult conversation with somebody, avoid texting them.
Yeah.
Like even people who you have love with, even people who you are in love with in this moment, avoid texting them if you need to have a tough conversation, because that is way better done where you can like read some body language, you can hear some tone, you can get a lot more out of that.
Not have them read it over and over, and like there is
Oh,
something about
God.
like they can sit it.
Have
They can
everyone
misunderstand.
all stupid those are the worst. Those
Yeah.
are the worst. I told you before we did our, that podcast that I did with the three of you.
Yeah.
That was probably at the time was like the one that I was the most, we were all kind of the
'Cause
most
that was
excited
the
for.
driver for like what this themed experience.
But I could feel before that night, I could feel that there was questions about what this was and what it, and
What are we signing up for?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember those text messages
Yeah.
going back and forth, and even remember kind of stewing on like, am I writing this in a way that's gonna, like
Yeah.
even the little bit of sensitivity, and all of a sudden your ability to be able to communicate something in person becomes so much more important. Maybe that's part of what we need to offer the future generations.
Yeah.
Is like, hey, listen, we're not going back on technology. Technology is amazing. Like nobody is riding horses to get to work. They're all getting in cars because that's the most efficient way to be able to be the most productive version of yourself, and maybe even to reach your full potential. But like, you're not going to have a relationship with your car like you could with a horse. A horse is a living thing that if you take care of it and you love it and you give it, you give it a nurturing relationship, it will give you a nurturing relationship back. That's not going to happen with your Honda Civic. Your Honda Civic is just going to get you from point A to point B.
And
if you try to pretend that you have a relationship with a machine that you have with a real living thing, like that's kind of insane. And yet we've done it on every level. Like you could apply that to everywhere, right?
Right. What I was going to ask you, I guess, about the comment section thing was because I had an experience like what you've been talking about last night. I only started going like live on TikTok like last week. I think I started.
Awesome. Yeah.
And what I've noticed, at least I think just engaging with, comments and everything, is if there's a profile picture that like, is like I can see an actual person on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like more of a negative comment, I'll entertain it or like, say, oh, thank you for your opinion, like open to talking about it more or something like that. But as soon as I see it's just the gray profile picture and I see that they, maybe follow a bunch of things, have no followers, it immediately makes me think they're a bot, and I just have to kind of go back against it. Like someone was at first had joined and was more just kind of talking crazy to me. which I was, laughing about, nothing too crazy, and then started attacking other people that were commenting in there. And as soon as that happened, I couldn't like get them out quick enough because
Yeah.
it felt like my duty to like create like a safe
safe
space
space,
for other
yeah,
people.
exactly,
But I don't know like what the line is, and
This is interesting, and you two have like, I would love to just ask the question, then turn it over to the two of you because you're experts in it. But from the basics of what you've told me, because you're managing all of the social media for the Unscripted room and the directions that we're going, that the algorithms won't actually pick you up, and like you won't get the views that you have the potential of getting if you don't interact with the comments.
Yeah,
And
there is an
interacting with the
obligation,
comments
yeah.
is really important,
Yeah.
which incentivizes bad behavior.
right, when you have the polarity, it's almost like it creates
In
more
a perfect
comments.
world, it wouldn't, right? If you had
Right.
you had people who were being genuine with their comments, and it was like all love, and it was amazing.
and just people supporting people, which you see sometimes, which is beautiful to see. But
I think you really and it is certainly different for like for any kind of live stream than it is for like a post or a video that is sitting with comments there. But I think you really have to get very good fairly early on at which it sounds like you were doing actually completely correctly, but at really like setting the tone of the space. Like I think the best people who live stream are very clear with like, hey, I don't owe you all anything. Like I am here sharing my experience with you, whatever it is that I'm going live for, and you are welcome to join in. And like we are willing to put up with this, and we are not willing to put up with it. Like what are the rules of the room and of the space that you're creating, and whether or not you have moderators. Like I even though there's maybe 20 people that show up live for my streams week over week, I have a friend who's in the chat who has ability to like ban people, delete comments. And I know, but honestly, because there are also platform rules as well. Like, I've seen companies like brands lose their YouTube channel because they were just like clicking to show comments on screen and had automated that process, or were moving too fast. And they put like, someone had their like avatar was like a naked person, or like, that broke created a violation of the terms of service. So I think you're right. Like there is this idea of, again, like that there is a community and a positivity and a intense potential of people learning from each other and communicating with each other and spending time and like overcoming and defeating isolation, like especially on the other side of the pandemic and of kind of this like intense loneliness and isolation. There's so much potential there. But then there is also the flip side of people that can take advantage of that, and of all of the, bots and everything else that can come into it. So I think particularly for live streaming, the more that you can just like immediately before you ever hit go live, like know what your boundary is. Where it's like, I'm cool if you want to show up and have an opinion, and but we have a 3-strike policy. Like if you're going to come at me with like hate speech, or you're going to come at any of my other people that are in the room, like, you don't, thankfully you do have permission to ban people from channels. You do like, there is the ability to be like, nah, you can't play here. I don't.
Interestingly, that's exactly the advice that I would give to somebody to build their analog life as well.
Yeah.
If people are bringing something towards you that's not energy that is productive to you, set your boundaries immediately that this is somebody that you don't want to give any more of your time to.
Yeah.
That's your most precious commodity. If somebody is wasting it, or they are using your time in a way that gives you negative feelings, see the fuck.
There's the door.
And not in the, so I think that there might be common ground in the way that we could be like, hey, listen, we've been experimenting on ourselves. What are we learning over here that we can take over here? And what can we do over here that we could start to apply more over here? But I think we're going to have to figure out how to live in this duality forever. And it's imperative in my mind. We talked about it before we came on today, but I don't know why, but I have this feeling, like this urgency that we need to start turning. That I feel like the whole world has become experts in talking about problems, and yet no one steps up to the plate and offers a solution. it's like everything that I've listened to lately is just people talking about like, man, this is wrong and this is wrong. And then as soon as people start saying like, well, what do we do? They're like, I don't know.
It's overwhelming.
I haven't
Yeah.
given it a thought. I don't know what we do. We're
Yeah.
just, we're fucked.
Yeah.
I don't want to live that way. Like I want to make sure that we are thinking about kids. What are we doing to make sure that we are thinking about what these kids' experience is going to be when they become adults?
Yeah.
We all experimented on ourselves, but we've got to figure out what are we going to do for the next generation to make sure that they understand that they're living in an analog and a digital world, and that there's going to be some experiences that you're going to want to cherish in both. It's not like it's not good and evil. That's not how it actually is. The balance between those two is what we need to find. But there is lots of evil in both of those experiences, and there's lots of good in both of those experiences. And we've got to be able to decide the difference between those two.
Yeah. I feel like I'm noticing, and it might just be my algorithm once again, like a little bit more of the solution focus, maybe. And it just could be me trying to see more of it. So I'm liking it and I'm commenting and sharing or whatever.
More of this,
Which,
please.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, is what everybody should be doing if that's something that is, forward focused, I guess. And one person specifically that I noticed was, they started filming themselves from day one. I don't know. I was going to bring this up in the last podcast. Are either of you guys familiar with the term solar punk?
No, I don't think so.
It's like steampunk kind of, which I don't really know about. Like the
I'm
punk.
also unfamiliar with that. You want to
I
keep
know
going through different
steampunk.
versions?
Yeah,
There's some sort of
You've got
punk.
me. I know steampunk.
I think the punk is more like
Officially the least cool person
like
in the room right now.
anti-system, maybe. Like it's just going against like traditional norms. And then the solar piece of it is taking our connection to nature and then bringing it back into union with technology as technology is advancing, like using solar power and using technology that's integrated into nature and all this kind of stuff as like a parallel system. And this guy, I think I saw him one of his first videos. He was like, I've been seeing some TikToks about this solar punk concept and it really resonates with me. I'm going to learn about it and I'm going to try and create this in my community. I don't know if he's actually from Canada. It could just be because you said this, but he's wherever he is. He's somewhere in the Northeast and he's been working and he posts updates maybe every day, every few days.
Yeah.
And he hosts events with people that are like in these different kinds of fields and all that stuff. And it's been cool to see like a community develop around it where everybody is trying to kind of get the word out about the idea.
Yeah.
But also like you have also people that kind of come in and put those comments out there, and the person that runs the account doesn't need to do anything about it because he's built a community of people that are like, hey, this is his path. This is what all of us agree with. If you don't like it, like go do something else with your time. Go build something else that can oppose it. And if that's cool, people will follow it,
Yeah.
It is really like, I will say, incredibly encouraging that like as dark as these spaces can be, like there is still a humanity in these communities that like where people just find meaning and connection and shared vision and passion, and like it's been like a really nice sort of counterbalance to all of the negative stuff happening right now in the world, where like there are people doing like, and the visibility that we have to see that globally is also incredible, where like you're like, wow, all right, like there are these people who are like facilitating change, people who are like, there's a huge movement right now back into the world of analog and like quote unquote grandma hobbies, and like people building things with their hands and like teaching each other and sharing resources. Like it's neat that like
I'm super optimistic because I could be wrong about this, but my take, this is just my perspective, does not mean it's the truth, but my take is that probably somewhere near like 98% of people are extremely beautiful people who only want to try to live their best life and be kind to the people that they run into and want to be good to their children and want to live a beautiful life. Somewhere along the way in that 98% of people, there's also nurture. And sometimes nurture has allowed those people to pick up patterns that are not in their own best interest, not in the best interest of the people that they love. Those patterns can all be undone and unwound with practice and with stuff. So I think 98% of the people that you run into are worthy of trust over time. If if you get to know them, if you open up your heart a little bit and they open up their heart, there's room there for something to come together. I also have had the experience where I believe that there are probably about 2% of the population that don't have those feelings,
Yeah.
and that they don't care about anything other than power and money, and that they will do absolutely anything that they can do to keep both of those things. A lot of the systems that we're currently working within right now feel like they have incentivized for that 2%.
Yeah.
That to me is like, that's the eureka conversation for all of us all the time. Is like,
There's so many of us.
there's so many of us. What are we doing? What are we doing? Like participating in systems that don't incentivize us to be kind to each other.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make any sense at all.
There's a movie called Ants where there's a quote. Do you know what I'm talking about? I watched it when I was a kid, and I think I ended up like posting that little clip on my TikTok a long time ago because it was just so funny. Was it the grasshoppers? Whatever they were. It was
been a while
ants
since
and
I've seen
something
it, but
else.
yeah.
I bet you back then you were happier because I didn't ruin Santa Claus for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Back
Like
in those days,
tonight your life is
Yeah.
it's on a downward spiral.
The grasshopper or whatever it was like, no, we can't let the ants in on the secret. If they find out that there's so much more of them than there are of us, then everything that we've built will just collapse.
Yeah.
That's exactly
And
right.
it's in a kid's movie.
Yeah. But we have to remember that there are, like, just because the systems that we're in don't incentivize what we want right now, it doesn't mean that we can live without systems.
Right.
Right,
You
because
gotta
if
build like
you-
a parallel system to action.
Right. So what we have to admit is that we've allowed ourselves to become addicted to something that's not in our best interest. And when you get to that point, we've all gone through this individually. I don't know a single adult that hasn't had an addiction to something that they eventually were like, yeah. And it can be teeny tiny things, like, it can be that you drink soda or something where you're like, you drink it and the pleasure that you get from drinking the soda for a big portion of your life is like, this is worth it. I love this shit so much. I'm going to stick with it. But eventually you can have a day and be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I really need this much sugar every day? Do I want to make a different choice? Do I want to do something different? And it's okay when you want to drink soda, and it's okay when you want to make the decision to get off of it. But you have to you have to actually talk about what soda is,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
So maybe a lot of this really lies in teaching ourselves and our kids better communication skills, like how to properly communicate with each other and with themselves. Like it's whether that's in a digital or an analog space. Like
Well, this is where I come back to the idea that, so exactly what you're saying, I would say, is maybe even the passion of my entire life. Like that's what I want to know more than anything. But the deeper that I get into that, and I've spent essentially 3 years like locked in an office trying to go through this kind of stuff in my own head,
yeah.
is that I can't find any room for lying in that.
Yeah.
I cannot find a single ounce of lying that is helpful in anything that you just said. Because whether you're lying about the analog experience or whether you're lying about the digital experience, at the end, what it does is it leaves what it
Like
looks
doubt
like
in a sense of
what
Yeah.
it looks like it does is it leaves just this like daily dilution of your sense of self. Like you're just like you're washing away just a little bit of you.
Yep.
And the more you do that, the more you're like, well, if I'm doing that, I can't really like judge the big 2% who's doing it on a level that I can't even understand because I kind of do it a little bit. So they must just be like kind of doing the same thing and like it's
Yeah.
all the same, but it's not all the same. You know what I mean? Like white lies are still lies, but it's not the same as saying that there are weapons of mass destruction and we should go to war.
Yeah.
right.
Two completely different lies, right? Like one is like, you look good in that outfit. And one is like, I'm sending young men and women to go lose their lives for
Yeah.
something that's not real and doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if we all participate in you look good in that outfit,
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
it's not only
We feel
just
like
a
we
slippery
can't get on the
slope, it might
soapbox.
be the slope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might be the slope that we all have to agree that we can't indulge ourselves in these little lies anymore and still be able to understand the difference between the truth and a lie. We might need the purge altogether of being like, well, what would happen if I just woke up tomorrow and I just said exactly the way it is all the time? I tell you when I'm feeling good. I tell you when I'm feeling bad. And to your grandmother's point, it might look like it's not as hard as you think.
Someone's just got to do it, and then more people.
Well, is it harder to just tell the way that it is than it is to constantly try to come up with curated versions of telling people the way you wish it would be?
Yeah.
You'd think it would be harder to layer than it would be just to be like, I don't know, I woke up today and I'm doing the best I can. Like, what do you want now? Like, where are we going to go with this? Like, I can't be more than I am right now in this moment. But I promise you, you can hold me accountable if I'm less than I'm capable of being in this moment. But you can't hold me accountable for being more than I'm capable of being in this moment. I can only be the work that I've done to this moment. That's it. Like, that's all that there is.
It's a really good point. Something else that I noticed too, for me personally, at least in social media, and I'm curious to know what you think. My perspective on social media completely shifted when I started creating. Before, if I was on TikTok and only consuming, I just felt like shit after. And I'd I'd look at a funny thing.
Trevor knows how the sausage is made now.
Exactly. And then, doing the same thing, whatever, midday, make a few TikToks, feels great. And like, oh, okay, the expression has kind of poured out.
Yeah.
But those moments where then I catch myself like before bed and I'm just back to only consuming, sometimes it feels like, oh, you've earned it. Like you had a long day. But more often than not, it's so much more of something. It's like sucking something out of me. And I think, a lot more people are in that solely for consumption. And so it probably creates that opinion about social media that it's like, yeah, there's no beauty to the experience in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think to what you were saying earlier, I'm just excited for us to experience what it is to continue to have complex and broad conversations because there's beauty in everything. Right. So there's we've somehow been convinced over a long period of time that everything is hot or cold.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Most things are in the middle if you allow them to be. And the the smartest advice that an adult can give to a kid, in my opinion, is try to find moderation in everything that you do.
Yep.
Right? Like you don't need to be afraid of everything, but you also don't want to run into every brick wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just figure out how do you try things, but prepare yourself to try them with the intention of moderation, no matter what you're doing. That you don't want to, you don't want to be excessive, but you also don't want to miss out. But that doesn't feel like that's what the world is right now. It feels like so much of the noise, like we said, is in that extremely hot,
polarity.
Extremely cold. And you feel like if you don't pick a camp, then you're completely left out in, homeless.
Yeah.
You don't know where to go or what to do or where to be. But I think in people's hearts, most people are somewhere in the middle. They're somewhere in that there's pieces over here that make me feel uncomfortable and there's pieces over here that make me feel uncomfortable. How do I take the things from either side that make sense to me? And I only hold on to things in my critical thinking that make sense to me. And everything else is whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can only hold on to the things that align with my sense of lived experience and values. And those things come from so many different areas, right? Come from your family, come from where you grow up. So much.
Yeah. Oftentimes, in person, having a politics conversation, we feel like it's really, really taboo. But I feel like I noticed that a lot in that space of you need to be here or you need to be there. And I've seen people be attacked for not going to either side and being in the middle, and people saying, you're a part of the problem. And I hear some people's arguments, but I think still buying into the extremes, into the polarities in and of itself is we're not creating any room for the spectrum of who are you and what do you value? You know? And so,
well, and also we have to, at some point we have to zoom out, right? And we have to be all right, if we were aliens looking down at this and we said, you got to choose political parties and you got to examine what these political parties are doing, and you got to look at, all of the things that they do and the cause and effect of decision versus outcomes. Um, are there still people who are starving to death in the richest nation in the world? Are there children who are going to schools that they don't feel safe in today?
Right.
Are there, name all the things that would actually hit me in my value system.
Yeah.
And, I've been alive for plenty of different waves of politicians and people, and I don't see any of them focusing on those things.
Right.
I mean,
Can we all disagree on that?
I see that there are pockets of people who care about those things, but I don't see political systems who are moving towards that. What I see is political systems that are moving more towards greed and money.
Yeah.
That's all I see.
And there are only two of them. So in the same, like, as hot and cold, like, there's like, it shouldn't be a choice between one or the other, because neither of them are going to have all of the things that you value.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Do you think that
color has anything to, like, from like a psychological sense? I don't.
Or red versus blue.
Yeah, like, do you think that has like a psychological thing of
That's
us being like, red is hot, blue is cold, red versus blue? You have these extremes of just like trying to.
Yeah, it all does, but I think that it causes you to have to examine what marketing really is on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Right.
And really, if you were an alien, you zoomed out and you're like, hey, they invented this thing called marketing, and they make it look like what they're doing is trying to advertise something. But when they're in private rooms before they make those advertisements, what they're actually talking about is how they can convince people to buy that thing. And so they tried to come up with an angle of the way that they could tell a story that makes it the most appealing to buy that thing. And they're so good at it now that they'll even associate a color to it, and they'll associate a story to it, and then they'll even put product placing in different stuff so it's like a magic trick. You don't even realize that you want this thing until they put it in front of you in just the right way and just the right words and just the right sounds and smells and colors, and then they buy shit. And then their whole identity is about what they own. You'd be like, why are they doing this to each other? Why don't they just build cool shit and share it? And I don't mean that people shouldn't be able to make money and that we shouldn't build economies and that there shouldn't be people who have more and people who have less. That oftentimes has a lot to do with who's producing things that can be scaled and who's producing or has a job that they are able to minimize the stress that they have, to maximize the quality of time that they have. People who build things at scale have to over prioritize the amount of time that they give to limited immediate gratification so that they can build something that gives them high returns over a long period of time. I don't know that either of those is better than the other. You know what I mean? But you get to make a choice based on what your personality is and how you want to try to live your best life. But there is a mass manipulation going on.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it's like
noise.
The difference between, again, like if we look at analog and digital, is that in an analog world, you are more aware of what is advertisement and marketing and what you're being sold at versus what is reality, human interaction, connection.
Yes.
And then the digital space, less and less and less. And so like the lying and the advertising and marketing of all of it in these platforms, I mean, we are seeing less and less content from people we know and have a connection with, and more content from people we don't know, and we don't actually know what they're selling, if they're selling, or if they're just creating cool stuff. So there is this, like, and that's what these kids are going to grow up with, is this, mine are always saying to me all the time, like, that's AI, that's AI, that's AI. And they're probably wrong 50% of the time, but there is this trust deficit that is coming up, right? Where they just don't know what's real.
Again, I'm very concerned that it's intentional.
Yeah.
Because the more the kids start being like, I don't know what's true and what's not true, eventually they're also going to build that relationship with their parents. I don't know. Are you telling me the truth? Or are you not telling me the truth? And if parents don't understand that, that like if they are participating in white lies somewhere along the way, the truth is that the kid's going to stumble into one of those and they're going to be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
you don't tell the truth to me all the time,
Mhm.
which means that where do I go to find trust with anyone? I can't find it digitally, and I can't find it in the analog world, which in the analog world, intimacy should be directly connected to the level of trust that you can build. So, that could be different in different people's lives, but for most children, the most intimate relationship that they should have is with their parents, with their grandparents, with their aunts, their uncles, their family first, then their community, then the global world, then everything else. But if
Yeah.
you're not getting a nucleus of someone who's like telling it to you to the best of their ability from their point of view, you know what I mean? Doesn't even need to be that they're 100% right, but just somebody who will share with you
Yep.
from a place of authenticity.
Or if they're spending so much time living it like on YouTube on their phones on the way,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then that is the thing that they are trusting and going to first for
Yeah.
validation and for information.
I wouldn't say that this is a great analogy other than it's an extreme, right? But we talked about it a little bit when we did the mothering podcast,
Yeah.
which I would say, like, if you look at for young men, which is what I've raised, I do think that one of the parts of a digital world that is dangerous for young men right now is the access to pornography is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And on the surface of that, you could make a case that's like, okay, but like everybody's coming into their sexuality and it's it's an expression of the way that you want to be curious and go out and be able to explore those things. Okay. Like we could have that conversation.
Yep.
But on the other end, what you are always going to get is that if no one is having an analog conversation with you about sex and sexuality and the way that your feelings about how you handle those things and the wild ups and downs that come in an analog world of trying to build a relationship that involves having sex, which is extremely complicated when you're an adult, never mind when you're when you're a young person trying to figure this out for yourself. That is all going to be taken over in a digital world.
Yeah.
And they're going to form their complete understanding of sexuality, of their own sexuality, and of how you treat a loving partner in a sexual relationship digitally. I don't
Probably
see
90% of that's going to be ads, like hiding as not like product placement.
Right, you're
and
going to think that
influencers.
you're going to think
and-
that what you see online
Yeah.
is a representation of
Yeah.
what a loving relationship actually is, right? Which is why I'm not arguing ever that people shouldn't be able to make whatever kind of art that they want to. And if pornography is the version of art you want to make, fine. But we have to be aware of the fact that that has to be balanced by having conversations in a real way, whether that happens in your home or it happens in a school system or it happens somewhere. All people deserve to be able to have analog conversations about complicated things so that they don't allow themselves to be compelled by digital experiences.
Yeah.
Because the digital experiences are marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, like, even the movies that even the movies that you probably in the 80s and 90s, if you go back and you look at how many of those movies were funded by the CIA,
Oh, I'm sure.
it's
crazy.
It's bananas. Like, in the CIA being the most like obvious, like, but a lot of movies, because they cost so much money to make,
Yeah.
require
any
somebody
big
with
company.
a lot of money who has an incentive to build that movie with a certain angle.
Oh, yeah.
And then that movie ends up shaping the way that we think about everything.
Right.
One of the things that we talk about a lot is what kind of things do we think we should be teaching young people? And I think that one of the topics that would be one of the most helpful things to teach young people about is just how the brain, how the mind works, because there's all kinds of very well documented mental fallacies that we experience all the time and that we know about, right? Like confirmation bias, or wanting to put everything into a dualistic perspective, want this or that. And if people were educated at a young age about how their brain worked, how, they were if they were taught to be aware of the ways that their mind has evolved in a world that is different from the world that we live in, and that we have assumptions and behaviors built into the way that we act that are not, that we know are not ideal, or that are inherently wrong, or built for a world that's not the world that we're living in, the more that people can be aware of that from a young age, the more that they would be on the internet and seeing all of this noise and just be like, oh yeah, that's what that is. You know what I mean? This is someone who's trying to drive me into a polarized way of thinking and play on my, what they think are, biases about who I am and the things that I already believe. And it just wouldn't, in that kind of a world, people wouldn't be incentivized to create content like that because it wouldn't work.
I think you're making a really good point, Oliver, but there's a couple things while you were saying it that I was thinking. One is that to do that, we have this really difficult responsibility in front of us because we have to separate the body from the mind. Because the body is something that you can examine scientifically. We can learn a ton about it. We can understand that, like, even technically, the brain is the organ that allows, that we believe allows thought to be able to be produced. But the truth is that we don't understand the mind.
Yeah.
We understand a lot that's useful.
We understand enough to keep asking questions. But like, here's what I would say if I was
confirmation bias is a real thing.
We know all of that is true. We know all of that is true, Oliver. You're absolutely right. And I think that there's comparisons that you could make. But what I'm saying is that the mind is an interesting thing in this way. That fundamentally the thing that connects the mind between all of us is that it is our tool to be able to understand the difference between right and wrong. And fundamentally, what I wish more young people, but especially children, would be taught from a very young age is that this is your amazing tool for you to understand that you always know the difference between right and wrong. And
discernment. Everybody has that gift.
What your job is to do is to not, your mind doesn't need to be like everybody else's. Your mind is beautifully exactly yours in exactly the way it needs to be. But what you need to do is you need to learn how to trust the difference between the right decision and the wrong decision, which means that you have to explore your mind. And you can't trust that the way that somebody else's mind works is exactly the way that your mind is going to work. But you can trust that your mind has the ability to discern the difference between right and wrong.
Best way to tune out the noise.
Yeah.
We have to keep it simple because if we try to go more than that, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to create a system of authority over the mind. And that is not a good place for us to go. We've created a system of authority over the body, and look what our healthcare system looks like. If we do the same thing for the mind, which is even harder to be able to understand because you don't have a physical version of it that you can dissect and tear it apart and figure out how it works, it's different than that. It's an invisible version of that.
I think you can still have a hierarchy of information that has been acquired through effort and maintain curiosity and an attitude of, does this resonate with me? Does this not? What kind of complexity is hidden beneath these labels and things that we're creating to define, like something like confirmation bias? There's a lot of nuance packed behind that. And there's a lot of times where that term, like, you might bring it up in a conversation and then that leads you into having a conversation about the more nuanced things, questioning whether that's what's really happening or not. I think that it's just like tools that you're putting in someone's tool belt, and you don't want to tell them that these things are going to be true all the time. But I think people having that kind of information is helpful. And I think even a lot of the times when we use our intuition to decide something, our intuition actually is relying on information we've picked up throughout our lives that we're not always consciously sifting through.
Yeah.
But I think that your intuition, your ability to intuit things grows with the amount of knowledge that you have. I don't know if it's like a sort of like something that you're born knowing everything is right and wrong, but that you don't always have to think about things so analytically to decide things, but that a lot of the time there's analytics that are going on behind the scenes that still need all of that information or benefit from having more.
We agree completely, Oliver. Not that it matters that we agree. Like, it's interesting if we don't too, but I agree completely that we want to expose each other to more knowledge in the way that we're thinking about minds, and we should listen to each other. But the problem is when somebody says that they become an expert in someone else's mind.
That's what I was
That's
gonna
not
say.
possible. There will never be somebody outside of your mind who knows more about your mind than you. So if you give that authority away to somebody else and you allow them to start taking control of your mind, then you're losing your autonomy as you're losing so much of where your autonomy comes from. Maybe as much as 50%. It'd be like giving your body away to somebody else and acting like they know your body better than you do. But they've never lived in your body. They don't understand the complexities of, like, if I eat this piece of cheese, it's going to make me feel like this in 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's other people who eat cheese and also feel that way, but not exactly the way that I do.
Right.
So I know everything about being me in a way that no one else will ever experience. So it's not that you don't want to get the richness of all the information you can collect. It's just that you want to make sure that you're the one who understands that the final decision is yours. Like,
Yeah.
That's like the foundation that you need. You can't get too rigid in the hierarchy of information that's presented. You just need to let people know that it's theirs to connect with and try to
nobody's
figure
better
out.
than you.
Yes.
There's nobody who's better than you, and there's nobody who's worse than you. You're equal to all people, which means consume all of the information you can, absorb all of the information. It's rich. You can learn so much. But at the end of the day, always feel like you know what is right for you, and that you have to be able to learn how to trust your intuition, right? That your intuition eventually is your guide to what is the balance that you're seeking between your body and your mind.
Right.
But we live in a system that does not promote that.
Yeah.
Right.
The system promotes that somebody else knows everything that's better for you. And then when you actually look at the system, it doesn't look like it incentivizes anything for you. It looks like it incentivizes it for people who are making money and collecting power. Not always, not all systems, not everywhere, but the major systems in which we are dealing with right now seem like there's a pattern there that needs to be recognized.
100%.
All right, I know I fling the question over to you. I think we're kind of in the midst of this question anyways, but
Yeah.
let's go for it.
Let's do it then. Okay. How can we strengthen the bonds between us?
So we kind
I
of
think
spent
that right there, what you
yeah.
just said,
Yeah.
is a big piece for everybody to understand. And we've talked about it in another podcast of, very easily you can say to someone, hey, don't treat anybody less than you. But it also has the opposite effect of don't treat anybody as better than you as well. If we all realize and have that collective agreement that we're on equal grounds,
Yeah.
the bond can strengthen in that way. And I think just not prioritizing, but honoring the value of the unique experience that you have in your body and experiencing this life allows for you to be like, okay, I can bring value to this conversation. I don't have the same experience you guys have, but I won't have the same experience you have or you have. So we can bring value to each other's lives. Conversation.
Right. I think what you
It's
just
like-
said, it's almost like if you inverted that, it's exactly what we should be thinking about, which is like, you don't have the same experience,
Right.
which is why
That's
I
awesome.
could learn from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? That we're sitting around a table that you inevitably cannot not learn from everybody around a table if their experience is different than yours. And the only thing that we can guarantee from each other is that your experience was different than mine.
Right.
Yep.
So much vicarious wisdom that you wouldn't be able to experience. You're just taking in because you're choosing to strengthen your bond with someone else.
Yeah, and that there's power in learning collaboratively and together, and there's power in like the shared experience in the
Yeah.
community and the conversation. So like finding ways to get past isolation and to put yourself like in situations where you're able to have authentic, honest conversations with each other,
Yeah.
I think is so important.
It's tough too, though, because there's two things that I was thinking of. One, when we talk about equality, like no one beneath us, nobody above us, I also just want to make sure that doesn't get misunderstood as like, I believe that my life is far better when I put people in front of me. You know what I mean? So if I'm at dinner, I want to always be the one that takes the last bit of food to make, you know what I mean? Because I feel better about myself to make sure that that I was willing to show restraint so that I could make sure that I was taking care of the people who I love the most. That's a huge gift in life. Like, I'm not saying that you don't take care of people who you admire, or that you don't step back and not take yourself so seriously where you feel like, but I just mean you need to walk into a room and you need to have the confidence that who you are is plenty. You don't need to be more. You can't be more. No matter what you do, you can't be more than what you are right now in this moment. You've only had the time and the experience to get to here. So in this moment, we're equals. We're here. We've all had our lived experience, and now we get to share what that is. We might find that the experience that you've had in social media is so much more than I've had that it would be crazy for me to think that our opinions are equal. Your opinion is way more valuable than mine because you have way more experience in that particular area. But it doesn't mean that as human beings and as
we can always still learn from each other. Yeah. I think
it just means that we can't pretend that knowledge is somehow our human value. Especially, we shouldn't do that right now because we just invented something that's smarter than all of us. So how are we going to understand what our human value is if we continue to put it in knowledge, and we just invented something that has all of the world's knowledge in your pocket at any given time?
Yeah, knowledge
be
is
so
so
dangerous if we do that.
accessible and technically, equitable to some extent to everyone. So
Which it has not been through human
which
history.
it has not been through. So now not that it matters less, but it puts us all in the same playing field. So I think now it matters more on, again, like how you communicate with each other, how you treat each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting time.
So how do we communicate with each other? How do we treat each other in a way that makes us feel like that's available to us all the time? Like, what are the relationships that you have in your life that you're like, man, this works because this person treats me this way, or I know that I treat this person this way, and we build something together.
It's hard to say what works in each one, but it really comes with the courage of just being the one to do it
Yeah.
for one reason or another. I mean, I've definitely been in situations where maybe I made the step of being vulnerable one way or another, and maybe that gets met with some kind of flack or whatever, and then it kind of makes it harder to do so. But if you continue to do it, or if you stop doing it, you're not going to experience it with other people. And if we all just, woke up maybe with the intention of trying to do that, because we have the choice always, you might see one extreme of some of those responses, but it just makes it all the more valuable to see the extreme that you prefer, and you can find something in the middle all the time,
Can I ask you guys a question that we might be able to examine? So, like, I would guess that all four of us, including you in this too, Oliver, we've all had the experience of being vulnerable and having somebody reject us in that vulnerability, right? It hurts. Like, there's no way around it. It's an uncomfortable feeling. But the question that we should ask ourselves and we should think about this thoroughly and make sure that we're all aligned in the answer by the time we get to the end of it is, does that say more about us or them?
Yeah.
Is that telling us something about us, or is that telling us something about them? If you are vulnerable with somebody and they reject you, does that mean that you should feel more insecure, or does it just tell you that they're feeling insecure about something without having the courage of being able to address it in themselves? Because the way that you react next has everything to do with the perspective of the way that you think about that question.
Yeah.
I've heard this quote, and it's stuck with me, that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves.
Oh, that's
And
a good one.
I've been in those situations of, being vulnerable and it kind of being met with a little bit of resistance. And in the moment, I thought it was more like a reflection of like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I need to, bottle up or anything like that. But now in retrospect, I feel so much better of being to that point because it's allowed for me to go deeper and deeper into myself to then, talk to a random person on the street and now develop such an amazing connection, or, be able to feel comfortable doing that when that moment arises again, because it's going to come,
One of the things that does seem to come for all of us, and I remember this when I was in high school, I was dating this girl and just like fell in love. You know what I mean? Like, And there's a version of falling in love when you're in high school that is so all in
Okay.
because you haven't had
It's your whole life.
you're not like,
yeah.
well, let me just work through this scar and
Yeah.
this scar and like figure out whether I can find my way through it. You're just in, right? And like all high school relationships, it didn't work out.
Mm.
It fucking crushed
Oh, yeah.
me, crushed me.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in my entire life that I ever understood that no one else could feel those feelings for me. It was like, I can tell that my mom and dad feel bad for me, but they are not feeling what I'm feeling right now. Like, what I'm feeling right now is like absolute dread over having to live with these feelings for another second. Like, I
Yeah.
just want them to be gone. And no one can help me get rid of them. What the fuck? Why didn't somebody tell me that it was possible?
What happens
that I
if you-
could get infected with these things and there's no cure. I
Yeah.
just have to work through it. But again, it's like we need to approach each other with a level of compassion where it's like we should be having conversations with young people all the time, being like, hey, listen, your heart is going to get broken. Most likely. It's very rare that somebody goes through life and they don't have their heart broken. And when you do, it's going to feel really terrible. But it's also an understanding. It's also an opportunity to understand the existential crisis that you feel when you understand you are alone. It's just you.
Yeah.
It's just you.
Yep.
Other people, you'll be able to make amazing connections with them, and hopefully you'll be able to fall in love, and that will come with grief, and you'll have this cycle of experiences in your life where you'll be able to love and pain and love and pain, and that will happen over and over again. But in the end, you're the only one that feels those feelings at whatever degree you end up feeling them, which means you are alone. And that's okay. It's okay to be alone. It feels very scary to do it when you do it. People can hold your hand. They can try to empathize with you. They can be in the trench with you for a little bit, but you're in that trench. That's your trench.
Yep.
And I think if we understood how to be able to talk to each other with a little bit more where we could find the common ground, where we all understand we are going to go through these experiences, and we try to speak to each other about what that experience was for me. What was it for you? What was it for you? Did we experience things the same way? We might be able to unlock a lot of locks to try to figure out how we could help the next generation deal with this in a much more coherent way. Because right now it looks like everybody's just like, like, let me try to get through this life by just figuring out how, like, when some shit happens, I try to deal with it, move through it. But nobody is really saying like, hey, listen, there's some inevitable things that are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
There's some unavoidables out there. And if you think that you're going to avoid it because you married your high school sweetheart, it's just going to catch you in another way. It's not like you're getting out of this. Like we're all in this together. So how can we love on each other when somebody's got to go through it without trying to pretend like they're not alone? They are alone. That is the nature of being alive, is that you only have one single consciousness and your pinhole is pretty tiny of what you can see and experience and understand and learn. So we're way better off if we admit that, and then we just be like, well, what if we combine all these? You know what I mean? Like, what if we all tried to just share with each other what our honest, conscious experience is, and then if we combined all of those views together, we'd have a much more solid view of what the world actually is. But when we try to pretend like that's not what the reality is, we end up like kind of creating this mirage as if we are all in it together, and we are and we're not. You know what I mean? We're in this by ourselves, and if we're lucky, we get to fall in love with a lot of people who we get to be on this ride with together, but those are not the same things.
Yeah. We've like thinking about, I don't know, paying it forward is the right word, but thinking for younger generations, kids, right? We've built a lot of shame around so much of those things. We were talking earlier about like pornography. If we're so shameful about what that area of life is, like sex as taboo and so shameful, we can't have an analog conversation about it. They're gonna explore the resistance somewhere else, and if that's just digital, then we've talked about that. If we create this idea about, man up, you're not allowed to cry.
You're not allowed to cry.
You get hurt. Oh my God, wipe it off. You're not supposed to express that. We've created shame around it, and you can't it actually stays in the body. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Or being alone. Like why are you not in a relationship? Why are you not like there's tons of shame around that as well. Like
Right. Exactly.
or any of those
Yeah.
things. I feel like we haven't done a good job of being a community and supporting people through that. Like it is a lot of the, let's not talk about that, or you'll get that information somewhere else, or
Yeah.
Well,
we don't know how to deal
defer
with
it.
difficult
yeah,
conversations.
yeah. And there's some
Yeah.
fundamental things that as a community we'd have to talk through and decide what,
Yeah.
whether we all align on this. Like one of the things that I find to be really interesting, and I think it would be even more interesting from a male and female perspective, because I can kind of understand what it's probably like for you and Oliver, because I've been a 22-year-old, 23, you know what I mean? I've been those things as a man. So
Yeah.
my experience is not your experience, but probably closer. It looks like the difference between men and women is pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we are equals, but we are definitely not the same.
Yeah.
The experience that even the cycle that men go through and the way that their hormones work looks like it's a 24-hour
like a day,
cycle, and
yeah.
women go through a 30-day cycle.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So even things like fundamental things like a question, are we our thoughts and feelings? Should we be identifying with our thoughts and feelings, or should we be taught how to observe our thoughts and feelings so that we can identify with who we really are?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Comes back to the language piece of like, this
Yeah.
sadness is passing through me instead of I am sad.
You-
I'm
Yeah.
observing this
Yeah.
feeling as a signal of an experience and what it's trying to teach me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll feel it and
In the answer, I don't think that we can try to come to a conclusion with authority. I think we have to come to a conclusion with curiosity, or not even a conclusion. We just have to come to a working operating agreement with one another that we're like, okay, we've tried this whole attach my identity to my feelings.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that every time I went into the digital world, somebody kept fucking with my feelings.
Yeah.
And every time they kept fucking with my feelings, I kept feeling like a different person
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And I think somebody might be manipulating me that way, because I think that they understand that they can send me on this roller coaster where I can't figure out what the fuck to think anymore, because everybody is controlling my feelings
Yeah.
up and down and up and down. But
where's
if you
the
could,
agency?
if
Yeah.
you could step back from that and you can be like, oh, it's just that when I walk into this environment, my feelings do this.
Yeah.
And then when I leave that environment, my feelings go back down to there. So I don't actually have control of whether my feelings do this when I enter that environment, but what I do have control over is whether I want to be in that environment.
Yep.
So what I can control is I can just keep putting myself in environments where my feelings are more resonating with who I am and who I want to be, and I just try to avoid any of the things that are causing me these feelings.
Yeah.
Now, where we have to be honest with each other is that is fine for adults, and we should hold adults accountable to that. You don't get the same choice if you're a child. We
Yeah.
send you where we want to send you.
Yeah. You're put
Yeah.
And
into
then we
these
hold you
environments, yeah.
captive in those areas. And so we should.
That's where like that productive discomfort piece comes in again, where it's almost essential to be in those kinds of spaces, so then you get to actually observe that. Be like, this space doesn't really resonate with me.
I just think
How
we
do
have
I
to have
move
a
through it?
global consciousness that opens up, that says, like, listen, we always have to build everything in a system to benefit the most vulnerable. Otherwise, your system is shit.
Mm.
And the most vulnerable is always going to be children. And the most
I'll just
valuable.
agree there.
Yeah.
And the most valuable.
And the most valuable to the future of what we could build as a system, as a society, as prosperity in general. It's always going to start there, because that is the rule of nature. If you go out and you look at the way that predators hunt, they always look for the weakest and the most vulnerable, which are the calves and are the, you know what I mean? And so in the animal world, the adults rally around them and make sure that they keep those animals as protected from predators as they possibly can, to make sure that they shoulder whatever they have to until they're safe. I think we've lost our way a little bit, because it's like we've given up on that primal instinct, thinking that we're better than animals. And in some ways, we should go back to a little bit of what we could learn from nature and figure out how we rebalance ourselves to understand, like, no, our primary job is to take care of younger people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's
That's-
like the common manhunt tag sentiment of like, you just got to be faster than the slowest person. and just thinking of that, that's how we are in a lot of ways as society. You just have to make sure that there's someone that has it a little bit worse than you, so you aren't as
This
in that
is a little
situation.
bit cultural too, though. Like going back to before we jumped on the podcast, like it is the every person for themselves versus like community herd mentality. Like it is interesting, like because you have cultures like Japan, for example, where the idea of of children and of elders is very, very different than it is here in the US. Like so like where they stay together as a community, as a family cohort, like and there's there is an understanding of how each member is part of the community. There isn't that same level of like we're in it for ourselves, the benefit of ourselves.
Yeah.
Whereas
like the awareness.
North America has a lot more of that, right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
We should also open ourselves up to the idea that there is no magic pill for this.
Yeah.
So like if you went into a culture like Japan where they honored their children and they honored their elderly, what you could also find is that you would have at its worst, you would find a lot of enmeshed relationships where people have a hard time figuring out how to identify themselves outside of the opinions of their family.
Yeah, you kind of lose the individual in the community and
Exactly.
vice versa.
So
Yeah.
and that, maybe that's a cultural compromise that you're willing to make, but don't make it without your eyes wide open is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, right? Because maybe there's a solution where you can honor your grandparents, you can honor your children, and you can still be the individual that you want to be.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to compromise our emotional relationships with one another and ourselves. Maybe actually what we've been doing is we've been creating structures that are about our relationships with each other. And we should have always started with
Ourselves.
focusing on creating the relationship with ourselves. And then maybe all the other puzzle pieces come together anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
what was the quote that you said earlier?
Yeah, that was a good one. I hadn't heard that one
Like
before.
people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves.
I mean, if we just
Stuck with me
imagine
for
that
a
that
long
was
time.
true, right? Like, I don't know that we need to prove it tonight, but if we just imagine that was true, think about how far does that ripple go in the way that you can see the reflection of that in the way that the world works today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty profound, actually.
it really is. It's so crazy when you think about that. Like, I think oftentimes,
It's a really freeing quote, actually, from both perspectives, because
Yeah.
it's not like it takes the it's not like you're walking through the world being like, oh well, it's not me, it's them. Like it's because it still keeps the onus on you because
Right.
it's still it still matters for you
meet
understanding
myself.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful quote.
You know, it was one of the most important thing, the thing that a lesson that I've learned the hard way every single time. And, whether this was in marriage or whether this was through business or whether this was through friendships, every time I learned this the hard way, which is that anytime someone is defensive, that is because you've tapped into something that they know that they are.
like insecure or
Insecure about
insert
or
word
Yes.
of- yeah.
Yes, because people who are secure in their behaviors don't act with defensiveness, they act with curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Which means that we also have to examine, like, if we're going around and we're constantly offended by stuff all the time, why are we doing that? That must mean that we're feeling insecure about our behaviors in the world, and we're just allowing that to become this outward identity and personality where we're constantly upset about everything or offended by what somebody else is saying or doing or any of this stuff, where it's like, I've got to be honest, for at least me in my own personal life, waking up every day and trying to make sure that I keep my shit together is a full-time job. I genuinely do not feel like I have a ton of time to make judgments on other people, because I'm trying to be like, how do I not fuck this up every day? I've got 3,000 decisions that I need to make today, and I would like to make as many of them the right way as I possibly can. Like, I don't have a lot of time to try to figure out your decisions too. I would love to talk about that, but like, I need to concentrate on figuring out that I don't fuck this up. I don't know. I think that's the most honest I know how to get to. But I did notice that in my personal life, the idea of being able to communicate with more vulnerability when I was met with defensiveness, when I knew that I was being truly vulnerable, where I was sharing something that I was 100% sure I wasn't angling in any way. I was just giving it to as straight as I possibly could. If I was met with defensiveness, then I started to understand, like, okay, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Now, what do I do about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do?
I don't know. Let's talk about it. What do we do? I mean, I can.
Because I like
That is hard.
it. Kind of reminds me of maybe conversations that we had on the one-on-one podcast that we did at the start of this in
Nurture versus nature.
nurture versus nature. And what does that mean when, you know, do you continue to extend an olive branch for those kinds of conversations or like holding space for people? But at what point does it become a disservice to
Yeah.
yourself where
Yeah.
you're now, continually allowing yourself to be in that? I don't know. I think it's probably one of those things that's like there is no right answer, but there are probably practices that are beneficial for a good majority.
I don't know. I think it's got to be different for every person. I would love to hear your perspective on it. I mean,
Yeah, that's tricky. I'm trying to think like it on one I don't know if I have a good answer to it. I don't know if I feel like that's one of those things that I'm still working through myself, and I do think it is an evaluation of like how important is that relationship, and like and where are you going to put those boundaries, and how honest can you be with yourself? Like, are you like, I think you do really have to evaluate, like, am I even subconsciously bringing something into this that I don't realize?
yeah.
Yeah, I've had over the years like close friends who I no longer talk to that I evaluate whether or not like, okay, at some point like I made a conscious decision to end this friendship, and like and I do still grieve for for some of those, whether or not that was the right decision.
No,
like
those can be heartbreaking. They
can be heartbreaking, right? Like and as like
I've
so
lost business relationships that
Yeah.
broke my heart.
Yeah.
Totally broke my heart. Like
Yeah.
like a romantic relationship would break your heart.
Yeah.
Because I thought that we were going to try to do something, build something,
Yeah.
and when it falls apart, you just feel alone.
Yeah. But there are, on the flip side of it, there are like at what point, as you were saying, like, is it a disservice or is it destructive? Like, is it actually, I'm definitely aware of the fact that I am an overthinker and I'm non-confrontational, and I like, so there are things that I'm trying to work on myself, but so is that relationship going to be a disservice to me as well? Like, am I just going to be constantly making it worse between the two of us in how I'm reacting and the things that I'm trying to work through as well? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
weird.
not.
I
It's
think
not easy.
I can offer a little bit here only because I've gone through it a lot in the last, especially in the last 3 years, more than I've ever done in my entire life, which is, I think that the first thing that I found to be helpful for me was to make sure that I was completely locked in on what my hierarchy of importance was.
Okay.
Yep.
And so for me, that was relatively easy because I knew that my hierarchy of importance was my sons, number one. But then when I looked at the way that I had behaved over a long period of time, I realized that I wasn't always putting
lining
them
up.
number
Yeah.
one. And then I had to go through and be like, okay, well, what's the next hierarchy of importance? And it doesn't mean that it's that. The one thing that's really, that I found to be really helpful is that your
Doesn't have to be.
hierarchy of importance does not mean that that needs to align with exactly how you spend your time. It just means that when push comes to shove, that's where time is most valuable. Right. So for me, it was like family.
Yeah.
And I would even break that down more granularly of like who in my family exactly in what order.
Yeah.
Right. And like I love my dad to death. And if my dad called me right now, I would stop this podcast. I would immediately walk out the room and I would do anything that that man needs to make sure that he's taken care of. But if my sister calls and I have to choose between taking care of my sister and my dad, I go straight to my sister and I make sure she's okay because I take care of the youngest first. It's just the way that my hierarchy works because I think that that's the way my dad would also want that to work.
Yeah.
I think he would rather me focus on her than him if push comes to shove. And we've actually had those conversations where we've aligned that that is what we would want, to have happen.
Yeah.
Make that extremely firm, and then just every day you're like, okay, I have a certain amount of time my kids don't need me today. They're doing their own thing. They're having fun. They're at their mom's house. They're doing whatever they're doing. Okay, now I can go down to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And when those things don't need me, I get all the way down to maybe something fun. I don't know. but then when as need arises, you have to reassess, where your time gets renavigated. And when you do that, it makes it a little bit easier when you have to make a devastatingly difficult decision to figure out where your time gets invested, to figure out, am I making sure that my priorities are put together appropriately?
Yeah.
And when they're not, usually what it means is that you have to remove yourself or remove them. You've got to create a boundary that is, that is permanent.
Yeah.
If you don't think that boundary can be respected.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. I mean, we
Tough,
talked
dude.
about it.
Tough.
And I think was in that and am still in that right now. Just, as like bringing a new life into the world and having to really try to figure out what that time is going to be like at an age where most people aren't even like my age, aren't considering it, aren't having to make those decisions. And so I really have to, I don't think an audit is the right word, but really have to take inventory of like the relationships that I have and which ones I want to still cultivate. Yeah. Because where I have been and where I'm going is very, very different. Yep. And it's hard because you have those conversations with some people and it's like, we don't see you anymore. You're not coming and doing this with us. Well, for one, I no longer resonate with that space. Yeah. And two, I need to keep making decisions that are aligned to where I'm going and not where I'm trying to stay.
Yeah.
Here's what's very complicated about that, Trevor, is that every person that you have an attachment to has an attachment to your identity.
Yeah.
And every person who has attachment to your identity, you have an attachment to their opinion of your identity.
Yeah.
And so every time you have to make a tough decision to be able to decide whether you want that person in your life or out of your life is going to be a small or significant death of your identity. I've brought it down to the studs a couple times. You know what I mean? So I understand what it is to be completely alone by myself and figure that out. And then it gives you a reevaluation of how you want to find people whose identity that they have of you is very much aligned with the identity you have for yourself.
Yeah.
It does also, it was interesting. I was reading the Let Go, Let what is the book called?
Oh, the Let Them Theory?
Let Them Theory. Thank you.
I haven't read it, but I heard a lot
it's
of
quite
things.
good. It's, I will say, at least from my perspective, like a lot of it is obvious, but a great reminder. Like I think it was a nice kind of like curation of what you're like, to be true is how I felt about it.
Yeah.
But there was this one section of it that really resonated with me that's in this spirit where it was talking about like as you move through life and you have all these different phases of life, and parenting was like one of them. You end up with these different friend groups, and a lot of these friend groups are based on, and I'm going to screw it up in what she laid out, but it's like proximity, similarity, like it's like I think about soccer and our sport. I was reading this book at the time where like our kids were in soccer together. And I had developed this friend group through my son. So I have an older son and then a daughter, and like all of the kids had grown up together, and then they were in the soccer group when we had picked up new friends, and we were spending like every Saturday with these other parents.
Right.
And so like because you're there with other parents who get you and they know like how difficult it is to, shift kids around, and you're getting them to help drive and whatever. And then because you're in person, you're like, oh, we should get together for a barbecue. And so you're nearby them, you're at the same experience of life. And so it's easier to hang out with those friends.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean necessarily that once my kids are a little bit older and they're sort of out of that phase, I'm probably going to see those friends less often, and maybe my older friends
Are you trying to tell me
more
something
often.
right now?
But no, but it is this. What was hard for me was in that soccer experience, my son ended up on a different team
I
from
agree.
a bunch of the other kids,
Totally changes your social
and it
circle.
changed my entire social circle. And I had this
Right.
almost like feeling of just like, oh shoot, like it was like it took a piece of my identity without my control.
Yes.
But it did make me realize like the author was going through some of that and talking about like they had moved and like and then her kids were grown up and she was trying to like rekindle relationships with like probably the friends that you're starting to figure out, you know, how close you are going to be with them as you shift in life. But it was interesting in that like you don't like it doesn't mean that you are never going to be friends again, or that just because you know you've shifted into this different space, like it's gonna ebb and flow. And it was nice to sort of like that book was all about giving permission to be like it's okay if you're not. She was really offended in the book because a group of like her college friends or high school friends or something were all going on like a trip together and no one had invited her, but she had moved and had not been like as active in that friend group because of proximity and like a different like lifestyle and different identity than the other group. And so she was saying like, I actually don't have permission to be angry at this group. And it doesn't mean that they don't value my friendship. It just means that they were all in the space together when they were planning it. They didn't even consider me because I was out of that bubble at that time. And that doesn't mean that I won't be back in that bubble again. Like it. So I think it's fine. Like boundaries are not necessarily permanent boundaries.
Yeah, and there might even be more layers to that too, where it's like maybe they didn't invite me because I'm not fun.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to evaluate that, and I need to look at myself a little bit more deeply and be like, well, maybe I need to figure out how to practice being more fun so that people want to invite me on these things. Or maybe I said something that was offensive to somebody before, or maybe, you know what I mean? So there's moments for self-evaluation where you can learn something from the shame and the rejection if you want to. But fundamentally, at the end of all of this, sometimes I think we make it more confusing than necessary, because at the end of it, if you trace this all the way back to the genesis of what we're talking about here, if you can become extremely comfortable with who you are, and you don't need to be anything other than you, then you just bring you everywhere you go. And if you're lucky enough to be able to bring you to a nice group of people that you watch soccer with, that's amazing. And you get to figure out where those bonds expand or contract or whatever they are. If you were lucky enough to, you know, your dad is one of these people for me where I've got three, I would consider three extremely solid friends in my life right now. And to be honest, that's plenty. It's plenty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think I could probably make more friends if I want to, but I really like these three guys, and we all like get along really well with each other. And that's enough sometimes.
I've had this conversation a ton of times where I'm just like, I feel like I'm at an age in my life where, like, as mean as it sounds, like, I'm like, I don't actually, like, I'm not looking to gain more friends. Like, if it happens, great. But, like, I actually have, like, a good amount of different friends who all, like, as you were saying, like, have a different like connection and they own a different piece of my identity, and I them, and I like, and it's good. Like it's also more than enough to manage, as you said.
You can like, you know, I also built those friendships over more than a decade of you know, and not throughout that decade we weren't friends the way we are now.
Yeah, it shifts. Yeah, exactly.
It shifts and it morphs. Yeah. But sometimes you need something to mature before you understand exactly what it is. Yeah. And sometimes what it is like, even in intimate friendships or relationships, you're like, I still know that you got a lot of bullshit going on over there, but I just don't mind because I can see through it, and I can see through the patterns, and I can see the person, and the person is amazing. So let's
and the intention that you guys have within your relationship is pure.
Right. You know? Right. If any of those three people text me, I wouldn't stew on it. Yeah. I'd be like, they're either trying to be funny and it is or it isn't. You know what I mean? And like, and you can just, I think those are how, I think not saying that is the model of, you know, that everybody should go out and try to limit themselves to 3 friends. That's probably not a good model.
I don't know, rule of threes.
It's not a bad model.
But what I am saying is that I think that the common thread amongst all of us is that what we would say that we're actually looking for from each other. And I even think that you and I have built this even more from doing the podcast and getting to know each other, is like, what you're looking for is you're trying to meet somebody at the truth. Yeah. You're trying to touch truth with that person as often as you can, so that when you see them, you don't have to look through the patterns as often. you get to look right at the person, and you
Yeah.
get to be able to be like, no, we shared experiences that are beyond the frivolous bullshit kind of things. Like, we're tight.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, tell me how you really feel. Be real with me.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, be real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there, unfortunately, if you want to be real, you have right now, in the way that the world works, is it's a little bit more difficult to find people who can be real with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you end up doing if you want to be real is you're vulnerable all the time. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It's 100% vulnerability all the time, which means that you are getting rejected a lot, which says more about the person who's rejecting you in many ways than it does about you. Because if you have the ability to be vulnerable, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good accomplishment in this life, to be able to walk around and be real with people.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny you say be real. I don't know if probably I don't know if you'd be familiar, but there's an app called Be Real.
Yeah.
It's not as popular as it was, but there was a time.
Yeah.
There was a time, and Be Real was the whole app was you'd get a notification at a random point in the day. Everybody on the app would get the same notification for a certain amount of time to be real. And you would click the notification, go into the app, and take a photo.
Yeah.
It was a photo, like a dual camera kind of thing. Photo of you, photo of whatever you were up to.
Whatever it was pointed at. It was actually really fun.
I think that
was
sounds like a
fun.
really
It
cool
was a
idea.
really
It's
fun-
amazing.
yeah.
And it was such a cool,
God, I love when people
connective
are
way.
innovative like this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was awesome because if you missed the Be Real, like I don't know necessarily that you could go back and like it
Yeah, I
wasn't
think
something
it
you
was
could
just a
curate
moment,
really.
yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
see it and you're like, okay, gotta be real. And then you get to see everybody else being real. Someone might be on the toilet. Another person could be like sightseeing, and you could like kind of like send a picture or like an emoji as like a reaction to like whatever
Right.
it was that they were doing. And that was it. I don't even know that you could comment words or anything like
Yeah.
that. But it was cool to everybody like gets the notification. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, be real. It's time to be real.
Yeah, and you got a glimpse into everyone else's life, but in like a healthier way, because it wasn't, or at least it was less difficult to it was harder to curate. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
couldn't-
yeah,
You
exactly.
couldn't fake it as easily as you can other ones.
Yeah.
As like a systems architect, though, I would say that I can see almost immediately that that is an amazing idea, but probably has a short shelf life to it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as people are getting some sort of incentive to being real,
Yeah.
then it will pervert it and make them start to find ways that they're trying to maximize real.
Yeah.
Right. And so eventually it just turns into another version of Instagram or anything else, and it falls apart. But the initial idea of it, that is incredible. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's amazing to be able to cultivate. It's the complexity is how you build systems around ideas like that so that they have long lasting effect and they don't end up being a fad.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is, there's a lot of complexity in why something becomes popular for a short amount of time and then starts to fall off. And a lot of it is the same basic concept of fear and respect. It's like, if people start fearing that they're not real enough, then they'll start creating scenarios that make them look even more real. Like, I'm taking a shit right now, even though they might not have been taking a
they
shit
were
when
in
that
the
happened.
bathroom.
Yeah. So you see what I mean? Like, it's incentivizing what is the lower level of that, which is really vulnerability. Do you have the ability to be vulnerable at any moment so that you can just feel real here rather than trying to prove real there? But you know, we're in the most amazing time ever, guys. Like, we're like, the world right now, whatever it's been up until this point, it's not going to be this going forward, and we get to shape that. Like,
Yeah.
I think
100%.
I feel very lucky to be a part of this. I feel very lucky to be a part of this with the two of you, but also collectively, the group of people that we brought into this podcast has been extremely interesting and curious people.
Yeah.
Like that, how lucky, I feel very fortunate
cool.
that 2 nights a week I get to sit down with people who I genuinely enjoy, and I get to hear all of these different perspectives and ideas. I think my life is going to be significantly enriched from hosting this over a long period of time, regardless of whether it turns into anything. Almost doesn't matter. It's like just the idea that I was able to build a part of my career where I could sit down and talk and listen is, it feels like a little bit of a cure.
I feel the same way in the way that I get to work and connect with people, like, trying to have a conversation. Ultimately, loving for them to be on a podcast if it's someone that I enjoy having a conversation with. But so many people around here that I never would have met, you know?
Yeah.
Oliver never would have been in the situation. I mean, you know, I think we've had this discussion of like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a never. I think
You
it's
and
more of
Oliver
like an
might have been
alignment kind of
star-crossed
thing.
friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere along the way, I feel like you two were going to meet each other. You two were
Princes of
destined.
Serendip.
You two were destined for each other.
But like the situation
Brothers
came to
of the
be to
purple
get us
envelope,
there.
I would say.
Yes,
maybe,
brothers
something
of the
like
purple
that.
envelope. It's just been cool to like get like a lot of our guests. I've followed one thread, went to one place or was downtown. Someone didn't want to be on a podcast, but we had a really good conversation, and they told me to go to some place here in Amesbury.
Yeah.
Talked to the owner and got them signed up, and they sent me a few places to go check out.
Yep.
And then I went to one of those places, and we found two guests, in Steve and Lisa, and I went to one of her things. It just created a whole network of
Yeah.
People are good.
beautiful things.
People are genuinely good. You know what I mean? So the more you open up your heart and be good to people, the more you realize that there's just so much of that wants to come back in your direction.
Mm-hmm.
Just think that we have gotten ourselves to a point in human history where we just forgot that.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not there. It's like you can go anywhere on any given day, and you'll find that in every coffee shop you walk into. You'll find it in every library you interact with somebody in. You can find it walking down the street. But if you go to the news, good luck finding it there.
Mm-hmm.
If you go onto your phone, good fucking luck finding it there.
Yeah.
We just have to re-tap into the analog
Yeah.
so that we reevaluate what the digital is.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think we've been so invested in trying to build something we didn't completely understand that
Yeah.
we just got completely over our heads in the deep end of being 100% in on this thing. And we just forgot that like our existence is actually all about analog.
Yeah.
It's all about
And is what gives that thing its a piece of value, I guess.
It's what right. It's the only reason why that thing could give purpose to everything else is because it allows us the ability to be able to make opportunity for analog to exist.
Mhm.
You like if we could find these two things in balance, I would say in the same way that like a perfect business. If I was consulting for a business, what I would be trying to help them find is the perfect balance between process and culture. That's what I'm looking at I'm evaluating everything that's going on, and we're trying to figure that out. But if I had to be a little bit more in one direction or the other, I would always try to find a little bit more culture than I did process. That's what I would, if I had to be a little imbalanced, I'd be imbalanced in that direction.
Yeah.
And I would say we need to find our balance between analog and digital. But let's just lean a little bit more into the analog than the digital. Let's not try to pretend like we're not going to use the technology. It's going to be there, but let's just make sure that like we're, our bias is a little bit more towards human interaction and the importance of what it feels like to do this, rather than giving our bias a little bit more over to a place where we have a lot of opportunities to grow. We have a lot of things that we can become more productive, become more expansive, become more globalized. But it is not the place where we're going to find people who love us.
Yeah.
It's just not. Like, and even if we did find somebody on there who could love us, they still have
They
to
have
meet
to
us.
you. Yeah.
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 And if they don't, that's another thing altogether. But- All right.
I think
So
there's some
I
good
don't-
TV shows. to
I don't
watch.
actually know how much time we have left, Oliver, but I'm guessing that we're getting pretty close to our 3-hour mark.
Half an hour left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you two are comfortable with it, we'll move on to the final question.
Let's do it.
Okay. And the final question is, what is your potential?
You're shocked by that. Really?
What'd you say?
I thought it was funny because Brett obviously knows that that's the final question.
He was shocked
like
at
a-
your shock.
That was like an inside joke. Yeah. So what? I know you've explored this before.
Yeah.
We went with this. This has been the anchor question through our last. I think this might be our 6th episode that we've used it for.
This is I am so bad at questions like this. What is your potential?
I think my answer remains
Yeah,
the same
thanks.
for the most part. My friend Kennedy and I were in the last podcast,
Okay.
so last Thursday.
Yeah.
And we were both talking about it in kind of acknowledging that we didn't necessarily want to place any kind of limitation on it.
Yeah, like my immediate answer was like endless. There's
Right,
endless
yeah, like
potential,
infinite
but yeah,
potential.
infinite potential.
But still, I wanted to honor the fact that while there might be like infinite potential,
Yeah.
there is only like a true pathway for my potential that's for me, and
Yeah.
can't really be for anybody else because it's my experience, you know, and it's takes everything into account. And so it's not like, I don't want to say, oh, you know, my potential is having this thing, being able to experience this, and being in this kind of state. I think it is so much more, at least about not doing or having, but it's so much more about being. And, you know, we've talked about peace, and there are so many different things that come into that. So it's not just the peace aspect, but it's the love and it's the
Well, sometimes too,
openness.
when this question comes up, it makes everybody feel like they need to immediately gravitate towards like this infinite, boundless version of myself where I can do anything.
Yeah.
But that I don't know that that is healthy for us either, because like today I had to go, and register a couple cars today,
Okay.
and so I had to write a check to you know, for the town and for the state,
Yeah.
and it was the first time in a long time. First of all, I haven't written a check in a long time. And it was also
How nice for you. I have to write them for whatever reason all
it
the
was
time.
also the first time that I had somebody hovering over me as I was writing a check.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I was like, am I spelling 18 right? How do you spell 18? Oh my God, is she gonna know that I don't know how to spell 18 the first way? And it was like everything that I was writing, I was so in my fucking head the entire time of like thinking about my deficiency in being able to spell, plus this woman's opinion of me because I can't, you know, because I'm struggling through this. She probably she's probably at her computer doing whatever she was doing and had no idea that that any of this was happening. But my point is that I'm not going to win a spelling bee. I'm just not. You know what I mean? I'm never going to win a spelling bee.
Yeah.
It was never something that I was good at. I don't have the memory to be able to do it. I spell phonetically. I have all of these things that will, but like, fine. Nobody's forcing me into spelling bees. Nobody's, you know, I'm not losing my business because I was unsure about how 18 was spelled today.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is tragic about any of that. It's just understanding that whatever my deficiencies are because I have a gift. And whatever my gifts are has an equal deficiency. And if I don't figure out how to become attuned to that, then I end up spending my whole life thinking that I can be infinitely, boundlessly amazing at everything. And the truth is that I will only be disappointed by the time I get there to realize that there's not enough time to be infinitely, amazingly, boundlessly good at everything.
Right.
There's
Right.
probably only enough time to be infinitely, boundlessly good at very,
Things that
very, very small number of things. And to be really good at that takes extraordinary focus. You know what I mean? So I think we just have to kind of like, we have to try to think about all of these things. Not that what I just said is the truth, but how do we look at them as honestly as we possibly can to make sure that we don't leave any little white lies for ourselves
Yeah.
somewhere deep in our psyche where we're tricking ourselves into creating an image that is impossible for us to be able to fulfill.
I'm going to start replacing all the questions with spelling bee questions.
Last question. Please spell 18.
Yeah.
You know what's ironic about this is, first of all, my kids give me shit about it all the time because I am a terrible speller. Both of them have won.
I was going to say that.
said
That's what I was struggling with wanting to say that.
Literally, last time I saw their mom, I was like, I got to give it to you. I don't know. Like, you clearly have amazing spelling genes because I know none of it came from me. And both of these guys are killing it. So
It is interesting. I think about this a lot because throughout my career, I have always felt like I am like solidly good or okay at lots of things, but not like an expert level at anything. Like I dabble in I have a lot of interests and I have a lot of things that I'm good at. And my husband is the exact same way. He's just like weirdly good at lots of different things.
yeah, your husband's a bit of a
But-
freak of nature,
yeah,
to be
he's
honest.
a weird freak of nature in that
Yeah,
way.
I did see him building an airplane in the basement of your garage. So like,
That would, all of that would just be normal, but I do like we have this sort of joke in our family that like everything is find outable or knowable or learnable or like, And I do think like what's possible, like I think your answer is really great in that it's like anything is technically possible, but you do have to pick a path because
Yeah, yeah,
time is finite, right? So
Yeah,
like,
right.
and your priorities obviously
Right.
are important and finite. So it is interesting. Like I could be, so I often have this like thing where I'm like, oh, I wish that I was like the world's foremost, expert on plants or whatever. Like, I wish that I was like that person, but that would be sacrificing knowledge on other things or experience on like there is a trade-off there.
Right.
It is
Ma-
really it's always hard for me to know when's the
Yeah,
right
go ahead,
time to
Oliver. What do
cut
you
in, but I very much identify with what you're saying, Katie, and I think it's a source of actual existential dread to me that
Aw.
in order to pick one thing that
Yeah.
you kind of have to
You're
do
sacrificing.
that at the cost of the potential of being all of these other things.
Yeah.
It's a tough commitment to be able to make. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Can I offer a thought that was coming up for me as you were saying it, which is that like if we thought about the image that I'm about to describe, right?
Mhm.
If you took some sort of space and you said in this space I can make something a mile wide but an inch deep, or I can make it an inch wide and a mile deep. But both of those hold exactly the same amount of whatever you put in them,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think that that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
here is that like you have to make a conscious decision
Yep.
as to whether you want your consciousness and your mind and your capabilities to be spread amongst the vastness of amazing things to learn about and be amazing at and enjoy. And then if you do, it's okay. You can't go so deep into any of those and you just get to enjoy the fact that you know a ton about a ton.
Mm.
But if you want to, or probably more likely, if you have the personality where you can't prevent yourself from thinking about just one thing all the
Yeah,
time as
yeah.
deeply as you can, I also think that that's okay.
Yeah.
And just like embrace the fact that you're going to be an inch wide, but you can go a mile deep and try to figure out how you can pull something out of that. One is probably not better than the other. They both hold exactly the same amount of water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
And I think we probably need both of those kinds of people,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
yeah, and some
it's-
people might be able to go
Yeah.
3 inches wide. And don't ask me to do math beyond that, but like, I thought I was
Not,
pretty good.
not one of the things that I that are on my
Scrolling
list.
through
Yeah.
math. Neither of those are happening. But it
That is a good way of
like we've
looking at
never talked about potential in this way in any of the times that it's come up, and I always want these conversations about potential to be like I think that it's such a gift to the world
Yeah.
that we can talk about our potential with each other and that we can say like, this is my dream. This is what I want to try to do, and we can support each other in our dreams, and we can try to figure out that not everybody's dream is the same, which is what makes it beautiful. We can all spread that out and try to help one another do and find those things. But if you're not good at something, don't make that your dream.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's not your thing, don't.
Yeah.
Which I think is in a lot of ways probably my biggest complaint about the way that we educate in general right now is that we try to make everybody. I don't know, would it even be a mile wide and an inch deep? Like I don't even know if that would be the
Yeah.
analogy that we're trying to get everybody to learn about all of these things. Where there's so many people caught in that system that maybe they need to be an inch wide and go a mile deep. We need to figure out that this is the next virtuoso on a violin, and we need to give them the ability to learn everything else that they need to.
Yeah.
But that's where we should try to allow them to be whatever they have the capability of being. Like how are we not seeing that the best part of being human is figuring out what humans can do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also cool, like maybe if someone really, really learns how to play the violin, that they don't actually need to learn anything else. That can show them everything else that they need
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a great point, Oliver, and that like, we'd have to stress test this amongst all of us.
Right.
But I would argue that if you learn how to, I don't think that you can master anything, but if you learned how to reach some level of mastery in anything, then
Yeah.
you understand what it takes to master anything.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like, because you understand what the amount of work is that you'd have to do to be able to reach mastery in the piano if you already knew how to do it in the violin.
Yeah.
And that comes to strengthening bonds between us as well. Because if I mastered something, I know exactly what it took. Well, not exactly, but I know what kind of level of depth it took for you to get there.
Yes.
Even if we're not.
Respect.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
respect.
you
Yeah.
instantaneously can give somebody respect because you understand that there's no way that they were able to achieve that level of mastery without the work.
Yeah.
The work and the time
Yep.
is the the inevitable. There might be people who have gifts that it takes them less time to get to virtuoso, but nobody reaches virtuoso without time.
Yeah.
Time is the constant that that you need.
Yeah. It's our like growth metric, I guess,
Yeah.
in a way.
Okay.
you could say.
So if you
So to
now
take
have to
that-
reevaluate your potential based on thinking about yourself, are you somebody who wants to go a mile wide and an inch deep, or do you feel like you've got something that is that you've started to tap into that you understand as your gift, and you need to be able to articulate that potential?
Yeah, I think it's, I definitely I don't want to go a mile wide or anything like that. I do like the idea of not necessarily being a jack of all, but having maybe a multifaceted approach, a different way of kind of going about things to maybe adapt to whatever a moment needs. But what really, really drives me is what I found is connecting, like not just connecting with people, but connecting people. Like whether I think it's also just the way my mind works. I like making connections between different systems and stuff like that. But it's also just the way I like to go about in the world. And from
What
a potential
beautiful
standpoint,
realization to make, Trevor.
Yeah.
What a beautiful realization to make, is now you can apply that to anything that you want.
right? No, exactly. And I don't know, which is a beautiful thing, like where the potential lies in being able to do that. I mean, I think like we've said, we're at a really, really beautiful time in life. And I think to come here now and have access to what we've talked about a lot about, which has dangers, but social media, to be able to have the potential to connect so many people on a global scale. But, I'm grateful to have been pretty well traveled so far in my life, and to have the difference of perspectives and everything, to be able to maybe know that that's something that I really, really value. And I think whatever I do end up continuing to do, wherever I go with it, that is going to be like the driving force in the journey, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also, it comes back to people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves, like continuing to make those connections within myself, so that when I see those differences of things, like I'm able to continue to connect in whatever way I'm meant to.
That feels, as somebody who's gotten to know you quite well over, the last 6 months, more than that maybe. That feels like you're very attuned to the way that I also experience you, which is that you have an aura that is eager to connect. You have an openness to you that is very, very rare. And people who are in your presence do not want to leave it. They love the feeling that you, the mirror that you show them. They love the way that it looks to look at you and feel that way about themselves. It's a gift. I
Absolutely
admire you, and I think that you're going to use it. And I would say at your age, and I don't mean to say this in a way that's like that being older means that you know the answer to anything, but I would say at your age, the beauty is that you don't even need to know how it's going to be applied. You just need to know that it's your gift and that you're going to apply it every day in some way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there will be opportunities that open up for you that you can't even imagine at this point, because you didn't deny yourself who you actually are and what your gifts are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge gift.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. For us, it's a little bit different as you get older, you know what I mean? Because then you've had so much more time,
Yep.
but you also have had time stifling things, time expanding things, time dedicating, time to being a parent, which is a very selfless act. So it doesn't leave as much room for you to be able to think about yourself and all of that. So as you think about potential for you, like, where do you think your gifts are that you want to continue to expand?
Yeah, I would say I'm somewhat similar to you. I feel like I have a deep desire to build connection and community, to get to know people better, to help people, which is probably why I thoroughly enjoy what I do right now, because I feel like so much of it is in this idea of the uncomfortable nature of being in this digital space, particularly on video, tied with a desire to connect with people. So it's been these really interesting conversations that have been incredibly rewarding for me personally as well as professionally. So it has been an interesting space, and it's been such a weird journey, because I feel like from the very beginning I was the person that like never ever wanted to be in these public spaces, or had maybe some of that level of imposter syndrome where I was like, I'm not overly technologically savvy, or I don't have anything to offer. And in those moments of being really vulnerable and like, I actually don't know, how well this is going to go, or if it's going to like have been the moments that have been the most rewarding in paying it back. So
is it just me that feels like this conversation has now come full circle from before, when we were saying if you're starting off something and you act with vulnerability, does that actually help you more than if you tried to do it the other way? And I think that you're kind of proving that it does help to be vulnerable at the beginning of that, and to be honest, and to be and to not try to be something you're not. And allow people to understand that who you are is enough. Because that also tells that to you first, right?
Right.
Yeah.
People see themselves in that.
It is. So I keep going back to this, and forgive me if I've mentioned this on the last podcast or just in passing, but I attended this. I have now attended this event called Momentum for the past couple of years. It's started by one of my friends and colleagues who was a lawyer and then decided he hated that, and so now he does a Walt Disney World podcast.
Okay.
And on all things, and it's like wildly successful. And he has this like incredible community of people, and he does these like retreats, and he works largely with travel agents, but there's like a lot of entrepreneurs.
Just for people who love going to Walt Disney World.
People who just love going to Walt Disney World, but also just like who are helping other people travel and who are like entrepreneurs. He's kind of in this like entrepreneur, solopreneur space where he's giving advice to people who are largely, again, like isolated. They're building their own businesses, but they they are experts in one aspect, but maybe they don't know how to do marketing, or they don't know how to do accounting or whatever else. And so it's this event where it's like people are just so, it's almost like camp, where it's like they're so excited to come together because no one else in their day-to-day like understands what it is that they do, and these are their people.
And it's community.
They're connected through their love of Disney. They're connected through their trust in him as being like a business advisor. But there was this session at this event where not Lou, but a different speaker got up. And he, for the first probably 25 minutes, like it felt like a very long amount of time. In a what ended up being wonderful. Got up and started talking about like first like his mother, and that he was talking about like how he started loving Disney, and he was like a very super personal, long-winded story that he was mentioning like a lot of different people, a lot of different experiences. And you could see in everyone's mind sitting there, everyone was like,
what's he getting?
What does this have to do with like sales or marketing or the things like we're here to learn? But they were like loving the story, and he's like really likable, and there were fun photos. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess we're just going to hear about this guy's life. And after probably 25 minutes, he stopped. And then he had people he was like, okay, who here connects, like, had a point of connection because, they had a parent who was a travel agent, who here had, and by literally, I think it was like 4 or 5 words.
Every hand was up.
Yeah.
That's
and so the concept that he was trying to say was that like, there is more that connects us than separates us. And the act of selling something to someone feels slimy in many ways to us, but really what we need to do is form those connections with people and find what brings us together and what we have in common. And that has stuck with me. Like that was probably 3 years ago now that I've heard this, but I had always like viewed sales, like I was like, I never want to be in sales, but it's so that, to bring it, I guess, full circle around, like this idea of, I had always struggled with this idea of like, oh, I know a little bit about everything. And I had never like, I was always like, well, I'm here only right now talking about marketing, so I don't need to tell people that I'm Canadian or that I have a 90s movie podcast or that I keep chickens or whatever, these aspects of my life. But it is in those moments of sharing that someone is like, oh, I keep chickens or I want to know more about that. And like they end up buying something or they end up like becoming a listener of the show or they end up because it's that moment of humanity, of connection that builds trust and helps someone want to get to know you better. Or, like it's those moments that you remember, like whether those are in person or online. So I don't know, it's something in that I think is my potential in the idea that we are more similar than we think we are.
Yeah.
And if we can find things that we actually have in common or things that we have interests with each other, then the hard conversations are less hard.
Yeah.
It's harder to be a jerk or to lie to someone or to, I don't know. It's hard. It's easier to have a political conversation with someone that you've built a level of rapport with.
100%. There was there's a bias to this episode, so I don't want to I can't remove that from my brain when I'm listening. But one of the things that I was thinking as you were telling the story about the gentleman who stood up and told the story about Disney and everything that he went through and the way that connected with the audience is that's also a beautiful example of the fact that the truth works.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need to manufacture some idea of why somebody wants to buy something or not buy something or do something or not do something. All we need to do is just share from an authentic place why we are interested in this thing.
Yeah.
Why we gravitated towards this thing, why we have chosen to spend a certain amount of time representing something because we have a belief in it and that we hope that other people will also feel inspired by participating, right? Subtly it's unscripted, so I never know where these conversations are going to go. But it did feel like we started to catch a tone today of a concept that we've never talked about on this podcast, which is just how well the truth works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it might be undefeated, guys.
Yeah.
It might be undefeated. That if you just stand up and you just share your authentic, vulnerable truth at any given moment, that is 100% the best thing that you could do. Right. That the chances of you might not win every single time you do it, but the chances that you are going to win if you didn't do it are probably extremely high, right? Like there just might be moments where there's you weren't going to get that project no matter what. No one was going to buy this no matter what. Yeah. This was so telling the truth didn't actually hurt you in that situation. It because you weren't going to get the result that you desired one way or the other. But what it did do is it made sure that you lost zero self-respect.
Yeah.
You didn't manipulate yourself in any way to try to to get somebody else to do something that you didn't believe was in their best interest.
Yeah.
Which means that you had a massive win in that moment, even if you didn't sell what you intended to sell.
Yep.
Because you built more of yourself. You built more confidence in the fact that when push comes to shove, you'll just tell it the way it is. You'll just keep going back to the undefeated well of telling your truth.
Yep.
In the beginning, not everything you say might, you might find over time that you reflect on it and you're like, oh, I didn't really know what the truth, like I had a distorted version because I still had little white lies I was telling myself that I couldn't get rid of, We all have those. Those are all out there. But the more you can eradicate them, the more maybe abundance of truth feels like it's accessible to be able to pour out of us. We always, we finish this question. I have finished every podcast when this question has come up in this way, but I do believe that the potential of this room and the potential of the four of us with you back there, Oliver, and the conversation that we had tonight feels like peace is definitely our potential. You know what I mean? Like there might have been certain conversations that we could have had in this room tonight about these topics that could have pitted us against each other as men and women in the same room, or of different ages, or of different life experiences. There could have been so many things that we could have felt like we became in friction with each other. But we just sat here for 3 hours straight without a single break. in the conversation, and I feel nothing but peace for the two of you, and for you two, Oliver, behind that wall. You know what I mean? Like nothing but peace in my heart for the two of you. Nothing but what I believe is the potential for us to be able to have more peaceful conversations in this room, and to try to figure out whether peace is the truth, right? Whether like we just all have been kind of stuck in too many white lies over too long to remember that peace is the truth. That is the best way for humanity to be able to enjoy each other, is to figure out how we live in peace. Doesn't mean that we always have to be in agreement with each other, because that difference of opinion is how we learn. But we should be seeking peace. We should be seeking, to walk into rooms and love on each other, not try to find reasons why we feel defensive, or that we push agendas that make people angry or go up and down. So thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so appreciative that we have this opportunity. I'm so appreciative that we've done this now. We've done this multiple times together.
Yeah.
Because I think that the more you do it, I don't know if you feel this way, but the more you do it, the more it just sort of feels like we're just chatting and it's fun. The first time you do it always feels like, there's a little bit more to it. But tonight was nothing but a pleasure. I appreciate both of you so much. And I don't know about the two of you, but I'm starving. So
now all I'm thinking about is the free food you offered.
We've got some delicious like focaccia sandwiches out there or whatever Reem brought us. Reem, thank you so much. We appreciate you too.
Reem.
But guys, genuinely, thank you. I appreciate both of you. And that is a wrap for, I think in this season, it's episode 9.
Congratulations.
And for our overall podcast, this is episode 20 that we have, that we've released. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's been a cool journey up until this point. Let's keep going. It's been
Yeah.
fun. And that's a wrap.